This is Ramak Shinobi and today I'm going to narrate first part of What If Naruto's parent broke free from Edo Tensei. If you enjoy this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
Orochimaru and his sound ninja had joined forces with Suna to attack the Leaf Village, leaving Konoha in ruins. During the Chunin exams, they had launched their initial attack. Gaara, their secret weapon, had fled, with the final Uchiha trailing closely behind. Hiruzen Sarutobi, the Sandaime Hokage, was imprisoned by Orochimaru in a barrier that killed anyone it came into contact with. Now, Sarutobi and Enma, his turned weapon ally, were engaged in combat with Orochimaru. The snake merely laughed when he said, "Orochimaru, I will not allow you to completely destroy the Leaf Village." Sarutobi gazed at him until Orochimaru removed several hand seals. Sarutobi. Sensei, do you honestly think you will be able to stop me? I have everything planned to bring about Konoha's doom. Sarutobi's eyes expanded as he said, Kinjutsu. Junsei Tensei, Forbidden Jutsu. Perfect rebirth. An ideal method of rebirth? Orochimaru grinned at the look on his old sensei's face. Sarutobi looked at his student in horror as he considered all the people he could bring back. Oh, I see you understand, sensei. This will bring back any person who I so desire to be born again. And all I have to do is sacrifice 2 souls to the Shinigami. Not a bad deal if you ask me, especially with whom I asked the Shinigami to bring back. The two remained locked, their weapons pressed against one another. Who did you reincarnate, Gurren? Then Orochimaru laughed. He started to laugh when he saw the face of his former sensei. The greatest heroes of the Leaf, Minato Namikaze, and Kushina Uzumaki. Sarutobi gritted his teeth in rage and said, "You monster, how dare you use this village's greatest heroes as its destruction?" He looked behind Sarutobi and pushed his sword hard enough to leap back as Sarutobi looked behind him. "I dare, because I want to see Konoha burn, and it will be so enjoyable to see it burn at their hands. They are mine to control until they see the person that was most precious to them in life. Even then they will have to fight my control." Ah, it seems like the jutsu is finally kicking in. 2 heaps of ash were growing together, becoming human. It was obvious that the first shape was male and the second was female. Although the bodies were entirely composed of ash, they gradually began to resemble flesh. The female developed crimson-red hair, while the male developed spiky blonde hair. As they started to appear more human, more ash accumulated around them. The woman was dressed as an Anbu captain, and the male figure was now wearing a long white trench coat. When the ash finally turned to its intended form, Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki were visible. The two obeyed and leapt through a recently created gap in the barrier, saying, "Go, destroy the Leaf Village." As Sarutobi prepared to pursue them, Orochimaru persisted in his attack. With an angry snarl, Sarutobi said, "Minato, Kushina, I only hope you can break free of his control." Naruto, who had just assisted in defeating Gaara, was returning to the arena. In addition to getting him back on his feet, Kyuubi had sent enough chakra into his system to allow him to kick some sound ninja. When Naruto scaled the arena's walls and dove in, he discovered that the same man who had destroyed his life was standing over dozens of dead Konoha shinobi, accompanied by a red-haired woman. He lost his balance and fell into the arena as he was about to retreat because the Kyuubi's chakra stopped flowing through his body. Crack was the sound he heard in his left leg as he landed. He barely noticed the 2 shinobi running toward him as he grabbed his leg. He saw the Yondaime draw a strange-looking kunai and the red-haired woman draw her katana. Time seemed to slow down as he watched them. A second seemed to last forever. He saw the katana swing down. He saw the kunai being raised to kill him. He closed his eyes and said, "So, this is how it ends." He opened his eyes to see the approaching blades and said, "This is how I die." He waited for death's embrace because he didn't care that he was going to die. It would free him from the hell he had been forced to live in. He wouldn't have to wonder if his parents ever loved him. He wouldn't have to wonder if they abandoned him. He would be free at last. With that final thought, he waited for the blades that would end his life and send him to whatever planes Kami had determined he should be sent, but it never materialized. When he opened his eyes, he saw that the kunai was only an inch from killing him and that the katana was right at his throat, barely touching his skin. He also recognized the Yondaime's face. Why did he look so much like him? And why were they staring at him? Why weren't they killing him? Why weren't the Yondaime exacting revenge for his death? And why did the woman have eyes the same color as his? The two gazed at him, and then the woman's eyes widened and a single tear trickled down her cheek. A moment later, the Yondaime started to cry. The woman stammered, "En Naruto," as though she were posing a query. Incredulous, Naruto wondered how they knew him. Did they recall him? Did they recall that he was in possession of a demon? The woman said, "My baby," after the Yondaime and she had dropped their weapons. The Yondaime said, "My son?" They knew his name and referred to him as their child, which shocked Naruto beyond belief. However, he had no parents. He was referred to as a demon by the villagers. Demons are also parentless. However, he was a Jinchuriki, not a demon. However, the Yondaime, who have such noble blood, wouldn't be viewed as monsters, would they? "Oh Naruto, I'm so sorry we couldn't be there for you. I'm just so glad you're safe. I know it must have been hard to hear that your parents were dead, and at such a young age too." The woman embraced him, and Naruto looked back up, but he made no attempt to give her a hug. "Naruto, why aren't you happy to see your parents? Surely when Sarutobi told you about us you wished to see us again. Why are you so sad?" Minato asked, walking forward and staring into his son's eyes. Naruto started to mumble something, but Minato just stared. As their son started to shake, they simply stared at him and said, "Ogg knew, he knew my parents." The two were shocked when Kushina attempted to embrace her son once more, but he screamed, "No, my parents abandoned me." Was that really what he thought? They gaped as he collapsed to his knees, trembling, and repeated, "Lies, lies, lies, no child with blood as noble as the Yondaime would be treated like a monster." Minato was going to approach Naruto. When Minato and Kushina turned around, they saw a sound nin hurling a kunai he was holding at Naruto while a dozen or so others behind him screamed, "Dai Kyuubi, brat." As Naruto watched the kunai arrive, he realized that he would finally be free, no more deception, no more pain. The kunai was 12 feet from him when Kushina sliced it out of the air with a clang motion. Her words, "Stay the fuck away from my son you assholes," were followed by Minato as she dashed forward. Naruto watched as the woman cut down the first sound ninja. They called him son. Minato shoved a kunai into one of their heads. They protected him. Kushina cut a sound ninja down the middle, but they had to be lying. Minato flashed behind another sound ninja and cut his throat. Splattering blood all over the place. He wasn't supposed to be loved. Kushina and Minato stabbed through opposite sides of the same sound nin. He wasn't supposed to. Minato kicked a ninja into the air as Kushina came down to cut him in half, to have a family. "Naruto, Naruto, are you okay?" Kushina and Minato ran to their son and grabbed his shoulders. Naruto just stared at them and muttered the same thing. "Lies, lies, lies." His eyes rolled into the back of his head as he dropped to the ground. Naruto took hold of him. In order to get their only child to the hospital, the two swiftly scaled the wall and destroyed any sound nin in their way. "Minato-kun, we have to get him to the hospital." The following day, outside the hospital room where their son was being treated, Kushina and Minato were waiting. The physicians had requested that they hold off until they could assess his condition. When they arrived at the hospital, the two were furious about what had transpired. Rewind. Kushina followed Minato into the hospital lobby as he slammed the doors. As more and more people entered, they rushed to the desk and were all surprised to see Minato still alive. In less than a minute after entering, Minato was at the lobby desk, saying, "I need a hospital room now." The receptionist gave the Yondaime a gleeful look. The receptionist grinned and Kushina moved forward. "Ah, Yondaime. Sama, it's so good to see that you are alive. I would be glad to help you with any person who needs assistance." She looked down at Naruto and said, "He needs medical attention immediately." When she looked up, she noticed that her son was the target of a sneer. The receptionist was about to continue her tirade when Minato grabbed her collar. "That demon. The only reason that this hospital has ever allowed him entrance before is because the Sandaime had Anbu enforcing it. I have no idea why they keep the monster alive. It's just a stain on our village." His tirade was interrupted when a young woman approached Kushina and seized Naruto. "Now you listen and you listen well, he is not a demon. So I suggest that you back off and get him a hospital room before I." The woman gave the receptionist a fierce look. She led Naruto through a black door on the opposite side of the lobby, followed by Minato and Kushina. "I thought I made it very clear last time we spoke, Haruno. If Naruto is ever to enter the hospital with an injury, you are to contact either me, or one of his doctors. This is the last straw, Haruno. I expect your uniform by the end of the day, you're fired," she said. Final flashback. Kushina was sharpening her katana, and Minato was spinning his kunai. They didn't say anything until Minato slammed his kunai into the wall with such force that it caused spider web like cracks to appear. Minato was holding the kunai so tightly that the force of it was bending the metal. "Why does the village hate our child? I made it perfectly clear that he was to be seen as a hero for holding the Kyuubi at bay." When she saw Sarutobi walking down the hall, Kushina would have continued her tirade, sighing angrily, "I don't know Minato, but why didn't he know we were his parents? We told Sarutobi that should either of us die, he was to tell Naruto who his parents were at 7 and wasn't Jiraiya supposed to take care of him? As a matter of fact, why hasn't anyone come to see Naruto? Shouldn't he have loads of friends?" Kushina and Minato approached the Sandaime and came to a halt directly in front of him. While perspiring, Sarutobi maintained his position, saying, "We want answers, Sarutobi, and you will give us them." Minato folded his arms across his chest and said, "Ask away." Sarutobi started to perspire and asked, "Did you tell Naruto we were his parents like we asked you?" Sarutobi looked down and said, "Well, it's a yes or no question, answer it." "No." Minato gave Sarutobi a fierce look. Sarutobi sighed, "Why?" Kushina took hold of his shirt and said, "I didn't feel he was ready to know at the time." "You had no right to say whether he was ready to know or not. We told you to tell him when he was 7. He is probably 12 years old now. You should have told him years ago, Sarutobi. Now for our next question. Why does he have his own personal doctors and hospital room?" Sarutobi exhaled. "Naruto has had several attempts on his life when he was admitted to the hospital by my own ninja and doctors. I had to set up a personal medical unit for him after the 7th attempt." Kushina burst into tears. "Your own shinobi tried to kill him. What kind of shinobi can't tell the difference between a container and the contained? My son is not a demon, so why the fuck do they think he is one? And how many times had he been admitted to the hospital?" Sarutobi started sweating at that point. He opened his mouth to respond, but the nurse interrupted. Minato and Kushina grinned and said, "I will show you all of his medical files," but Sarutobi yelled at her. "I made it very clear to Kagome that those files would never be viewed, no matter who requested them." Kagome simply gave Sarutobi a scowl. "They are not you, Sarutobi. They are his parents and his legal guardians at this time. I repeatedly wanted to adopt him, but the fucking civilian council kept getting in the way. I'm tired of being unable to assist him, so I advise you to stop talking. You no longer have control over those files now that his parents are still living." Sarutobi wanted to respond, but Minato simply gave him a glare. As Sarutobi waited outside Naruto's hospital room, they followed the nurse and said, "We will have words, Hiruzen." Alongside Kushina and Minato, as Kushina debated whether to use a summoning jutsu to feed the old man to one of her lesser summons or to cut him to pieces. Minato twitched in anger, thinking, how dare Sarutobi deny his last wishes? That old fool would be getting a piece of his mind when he was finished here. After stopping in front of a door, Kagome opened it despite her apparent reluctance. Minato and Kushina followed her inside, where they discovered a 20 by 20 room with filing cabinets. "So which one is Naruto's?" A tear trickled down the nurse's cheek as she looked down. "They're all Naruto's. Whaat? Kushina yelled as Minato ran to the first cabinet, a panicked expression on his face. Kushina ran to another one as she found some files. Minato pulled out one dated October 10th. Naruto was 5 years old then. He opened the file to find notes and a tape. He looked to see a television in the room. He walked over and pushed the tape in. When the tape began to play, he is mortified. His son was tied to a cross with barbed wire around his wrists and ankles and was being covered in gasoline. He watched to see that everyone who was doing it had black ski masks on, so he couldn't tell who did it. Just when he thought things couldn't get worse, he saw them light a match and throw it on him. The gasoline must have only been placed on certain parts of his body because the fire followed a line and burned his flesh. The fire made a bunch of cross shapes in his flesh. Not a moment later, an Anbu came in and cut down the masked assailants. The Anbu carefully doused the fire on the screaming blonde. The Anbu then cut the barbed wire and spoke, "Naruto, why can you never be given a break?" When he noticed the camera, he grabbed it and turned it off just as the Anbu was ready to jump off. Feeling extremely nauseous, Minato rushed to a garbage can and wretched, or at least attempted to. Kushina went through file after file, each one making her cry even more. The first one described how Naruto was beaten almost to death, 5 broken ribs, a fractured femur, and a kunai shoved into his lung, and how he was hung by his wrists and beaten with bats, breaking both arms, breaking every rib, and breaking his skull, and how a group of Uchiha tied him to a training post. He had 17 stab wounds from kunai, 30 from shuriken, and 12 from arrows, all of which were released the following day. Kushina couldn't bear to look at them any longer and collapsed to the ground, sobbing uncontrollably. Minato approached her and lifted her up. Kushina followed him as he left the room. "Move Sarutobi," was Kushina's order when they arrived at Naruto's hospital room and saw Sarutobi standing in front of the door. "We must wait for Naruto to recover, Kushina." He was struck across the face by a chakra charged palm, which knocked Sarutobi to the side. She pushed open the door and saw nothing. Once he is healed, I will, crack. After searching the room for Naruto and failing to find him, they saw that the window was open, so they left and seized Sarutobi, saying, "You will now take us to Naruto's residence." Sarutobi was about to protest it when an Anbu showed up beside them. Hokage. Sama, the council has been arranged and wish to speak to you in regards to the recent invasion as well as several other events. Sarutobi grabbed Minato's shoulder as he was ready to leave the hospital, saying, "They can wait until I deem I will go." Minato slapped his hand away but complied, saying, "I will send one of my trusted Anbu to check up on him. It's not a good idea to keep the council waiting." They then walked to the council chambers, and both Minato and Kushina were furious. As they strolled through Konoha's streets, Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki found that every conversation they overheard was disparaging their only child, and every second was gradually getting on their already strained nerves. "Hey look, it's the Yondaime. Yeah, he must have come back for revenge. Ha, finally, now that demon brat will finally die. Soon the demon will be gone. Hope he has that thing publicly executed for its crimes towards our village." They had lost what little patience they had left with this village and were thinking of leaving it with their child, but the fucking council was calling, so the Sarutobi had better hope nothing happened to their son. Kushina was holding on to her katana like a vice as they approached the Hokage tower. The two followed Sarutobi up the steps as they went to the council chambers, which were littered with glass and broken vases. After walking through rubble and wreckage for 30 minutes, they finally came to the Hokage tower, which appeared to be in better shape than the rest of the village. Minato didn't care at this point. All he wanted was to finish this council meeting so he could see his son. Kushina wanted to go and slaughter half the village at that point. When the Yondaime and the Red Death appeared, the council members were taken aback. Many of them were beaming, some because the Yondaime had returned, others because they believed he had a method of killing the demon brat. Other male council members were ogling Kushina as if she were a piece of meat, and the shinobi heads were trembling in terror because they knew the Yondaime could defeat any one of them. Kaharu, the Sandame's advisor and teammate, was the first to speak. Minato looked at Kaharu with barely concealed disdain and said, "Ah, Yondaime. Sama, I see that you are doing well." "Yes, thank you very much, I am doing pretty well. I want to know the purpose of this meeting." "I have other things to do." Kaharu winced at the icy tone but maintained her composure. Homura, another of Sarutobi's advisors, spoke next. "Yondaime. Sama, we have conversed this for many a meeting and all of the civilian council as well as Danzo has come to a unanimous decision. We wish for you to kill the demon that goes by the name Naruto Uzumaki." Even though Minato and Kushina were practically trembling with anger, they were able to remain composed as Minato started questioning them. "And why, pray tell, would any of you think that Naruto Uzumaki is a demon?" A civilian council member responded. "How can he not be a demon, please? He causes trouble all over Konoha, and his body is sealed with the nine-tailed fox. His whisker marks further demonstrate that he is a demon. What more evidence is there that he is the demon responsible for the deaths of all our loved ones?" Minato released a tiny amount of murderous intent as she glared at the council member. "Let me check if I have this right. You want me to kill him because I put a demon in his stomach?" Danzo raised his voice. "I must insist, Yondaime. Sama. Why kill him when you can give him to me?" Kushina tightened her grip on the hilt of her blade until it was leaving marks on her hand. "I can train him to be Konoha's ultimate weapon of destruction." Minato was holding his kunai pouch, waiting for the right time when a civilian council member said, "Danzo, we have been through this, it is too dangerous to be controlled, it must be killed." Kaharu said, "It is too risky to let the demon live because it is Mat Yondaime. Sama. Thus, we are requesting that Naruto Uzumaki, the demon, be fired per the council's directive. That's all. So, you, the council, are demanding me, the Hokage, to kill an innocent child, all because I sealed the Kyuubi no Kitsune in his body?" Said Minato and Kushina. Despite their best efforts to control their remaining killing intent, their voices still sounded lustful for blood, much to the horror of the shinobi and confusion of the civilians. "And just what makes you think you can demand me to kill my son?" Minato glared at the council, and they thought they saw a firelight in his eyes. While Kushina drew her katana, Minato leapt over the table and tore out a kunai, which she then thrust into Kaharu's neck. Kushina then impaled Homura before slicing him in the middle. By the end of the fight, the entire council chamber was covered in blood and corpses, with only the clan heads and Sarutobi remaining alive. Kushina's katana was covered in blood, and Minato's fists were bleeding from the knuckles from punching so many people square in the mouth. Sarutobi was off to the side, watching as they kicked the bodies out of their way as they walked over to him. The civilians attempted to flee, but were instantly put down by a furious Minato or a very enraged Kushina. "You will take us to our son, now," Minato said, grabbing Sarutobi by the front of his cloak and bringing him to his face. After swallowing, Sarutobi responded. When Kushina punched Sarutobi in the nose, he stopped talking. "Minato, my Anbu are watching him, you need to, crunch. Please take us to see our son Sarutobi right away." Sarutobi swallowed as he started to tremble as Kushina positioned her katana at his throat, making a tiny cut to convey her message. As Minato and Kushina followed him out of the council chambers, he got up and said, "All right, follow me." The other clan heads tried not to faint at the sight of all the blood. While trying to stay awake herself, Sume was attempting to wake Kuromaru. "All right, does anyone else think that things are going to go badly?" Shikaku, quivering like a leaf, was the one who spoke. "To be honest, Sume, do you even believe that question is required?" Inoichi averted her gaze as Heishi continued. Sume finally had enough and vomited up her last meal. Everyone nodded as Choza held up his hand and said, "I can honestly say that this village shot itself in the foot." "What is it, Choza?" Choza looked down in embarrassment. "Could I go change my trousers?" No one saw Choza walk away awkwardly, but everyone went wide-eyed at that, noticed the smell in the air, and looked at each other before starting to retch. Alongside Kushina and Minato as they continued through the red light district, which was a one-way area, Minato and Kushina were releasing large amounts of killing intent, forcing the villagers to retreat when they attempted to approach them. They became even more enraged as they realized that their son actually lived in this neighborhood because Sarutobi made no move to turn in any direction at every street or alley. Minato watched as his wife started to finger her katana ever so lightly, waiting for an excuse to cut up the elderly man. When Sarutobi saw a group of people standing in front of the worst apartment complex in the red light district, he finally stopped. He snarled in annoyance and stalked up to the group of bums, saying, "I thought I told you lot to stay away from this apartment." The worst. Dressed in cigar. Smoking bum in the front spoke up. The Sandaime was about to push them to move when the Yondaime shoved him aside. "Pisses off, old man, we're the only ones in this fucking village who take care of Naruto, and in turn he takes care of us, no matter how many times we tell him it was charity." He resumed smoking his cigar. "Are you familiar with Naruto? How is he doing, please?" After giving him a quick glance, the man pulled out his cigar. He reached for his pocket and said, "What's it to you?" Kushina saw that he was in a defensive position. "To me, he is my son," Minato said, clenching his teeth in anger. Sarutobi snapped his fingers as 3 Anbu materialized, and the other jerks turned to face Minato before rising and assuming defensive positions. "Anbu, arrest them." The Anbu was about to advance when Kushina gave them a dose of killing intent, causing them to instantly retreat with the knowledge that Kushina could easily kill them. Sarutobi turned to face Kushina and said, "Kushina, these men live on the street, they have no sense of morals or justice, having them near Naruto will only hurt him." Kushina glared at Sarutobi. "And it's so much better to have him close to the villagers. Stop the fuck up, old man." Kushina turned back to the bums, who were still in defensive positions, and said, "Please, where is Naruto? Where is my baby? I can't let your Anbu hurt these men when they've been caring for my son." The jerk in the rear sneered. "Where is your baby? Where have you been all these years? Why haven't you been caring for him if he is indeed your son?" Minato's response caused Kushina to start crying. "Orochimaru revived us both from the dead in order to demolish the Leaf Village. When we saw our son, we were able to escape his control. Where is he, please?" The lead bum just let out a sigh. "Loli is looking after him upstairs. You can enter his apartment, but be careful not to hurt him because he had a nervous breakdown as soon as he entered. If something were to happen to Loli, he would lose it." The bums moved aside to make room for Minato and Kushina, but they stopped the Sandaime from moving forward right away. Move didn't work, so the lead bum put a black knife to the Sandaime's throat and said, "As your Hokage, I am ordering you to move." The bum glared at the Sandaime and said very little. "Not this time." Sarutobi sighed and waited for Minato and Kushina to exit the building as the thugs surrounded him and produced several knives, their postures indicating that they were retired shinobi. Minato, meanwhile, was on the verge of running outside and breaking Sarutobi's neck because the entire building was rife with roaches and the walls were collapsing. If it had been a few more years, the building would have collapsed on itself. They searched until they came to a partially open door with the words, "Demon," written on it, and when Kushina opened it, she discovered that the apartment was in ruins, with some blood on the floor, a door, and a woman in a skimpy outfit beside Naruto, who was sitting on his bed with an expressionless face and appeared to be attempting to console him. When Kushina opened the door wide open to get a better look, Naruto snapped his head in Kushina's direction and went wide-eyed, instinctively tightening his hold on the woman beside him. The woman smiled at the blonde, took his hands away, and kissed his head. Kushina growled at the woman as she walked to the door and shut it behind her, took a deep breath, then turned and glared at Minato and Kushina. "Woman, you had better have a compelling reason for coming here." Kushina glared at the woman and said, "If you are here to hurt Naruto," drawing out a retractable dagger, "then you can expect to get carved open. Why in the world do you think I would murder my own son?" Before speaking, the woman arched her brow. "You're his mom? Where the fuck have you been all these years?" Kushina nodded her head, and the woman slugged her in the face, sending her toppling over the already broken couch. Kushina attempted to get up, but the woman pinned her down as Minato attempted to remove her. Naruto had no family, so you can't imagine the struggles he faced. How dare you return here with the expectation that he will simply enter your arms? In fact, how can I be sure you won't harm him and are taking advantage of his need for family to do so? After kicking the woman away, Kushina began talking. The woman narrowed her eyes and asked who her husband was. Kushina pointed to the Yondaime, and the woman looked at him for a moment before growling in disdain. "I was dead. Okay. The only reason I am alive is because Orochimaru brought me and my husband back to life." The woman pulled out another dagger and was ready to attack him, but Kushina grabbed her before she could. "Why are you trying to kill my husband?" the woman responded with a growl. "Because he is to blame for Naruto's lack of peace throughout his life. The village demanded Naruto's death after he sealed Kyuubi in him." Minato was gritting his teeth in anger, and Kushina was wide-eyed. "I begged those jerks to consider Naruto a hero. Does a Hokage's final wish have no value anymore?" Minato was pacing the floor as he pulled out his hair, and he continued to go over everything he had heard over the past 24 hours. When he finally stopped pacing, he turned to face the woman with a beseeching expression on his face. "Please, I need to talk to him, he said, addressing Kushina, "need to talk to him, please." The woman simply looked at the two. Neither of them displayed any signs of dishonesty or hatred. The least she could do was give them a chance. As Minato nodded his head, Kushina grinned and said, "Sigh, 5 minutes, nothing more." They approached the door behind the woman, and Kushina had a question. "Name, what is it?" The woman grinned before responding. She opened the door and said, "Lowly, 5 minutes." She walked over to Naruto, who was still in shock, and knelt down in front of him. "Naruto, these two wish to speak with you." Naruto looked very anxious and started to clutch his hospital gown. "Don't worry," she said, clasping his hand, "I'll be right outside." Naruto nodded his head as Lowly passed Kushina and Minato, giving them a stern look as she went by, shutting the door behind her. After giving them a quick glance, Naruto smiled as he said, "So, what were you two hoping to discuss?" Kushina spoke up and sat down on the floor, followed by Minato, while Naruto watched the two exchange nervous glances. Naruto smiled once more and responded in a manner that was obviously strained. "Naruto, I know that the Sandaime never told you, but we are your parents. Look, I understand that you two must despise me because I have a Kyuubi sealed inside of me, but I feel like your attempts to harm me are going a bit too far. You can stop playing pretend because my parents are dead or abandoned me." As Minato spoke, Naruto stood up but halted his approach to the door. "We were dead, and we don't hate you, son. However, Orochimaru was able to revive us using a jutsu. We nearly killed you, but we were able to escape Orochimaru's hold when we saw you. Please, son. We're your real parents," Naruto said, glancing at the Yondaime. "Look, Yondaime. Sama. I know you must despise me because I caused your death, and I completely understand that. However, is it really necessary for you to pretend to be my parents in order to ruin my life? You could just tell your shinobi to beat me like the villagers do if you wanted to ruin my life. I doubt they would mind." Kushina got to his feet so quickly that Naruto recoiled. "How are you able to say that?" Naruto was about to respond when he saw the tears in Kushina's eyes. "We really are your parents, Naruto. Please believe us." Kushina approached Naruto and stood eye level with him. "Naruto, please. I remember the happiness your father displayed on the day you were born. The joy I felt when I carried you in my womb. The first time I held you in my arms." Naruto merely gave her a fleeting glance as Kushina began to cry a little more quickly. "Sorry, miss, but I don't think you're telling the truth. Just go, please." Naruto went to his bed and sat down, and just as Kushina was about to approach him, the door opened to reveal Lowly. Lowly closed the door as she escorted them both out of Naruto's apartment, but before she did so, she turned to Kushina and said, "Look, I don't know if you two really are his parents or not, but for now it would probably be best if you left him alone. I'm sorry." Kushina turned to Minato, but before Minato could even move, she slammed her face into his chest and started crying more than she had ever before. Minato wrapped his arms around his wife as he let a few tears fall. As he and his wife collapsed to the ground, he let his tears fall. "There are a few people I wish to speak to, starting with you, Jiraiya." "Sensei," Minato said, glaring at the ground. The following day, in order to ensure that Naruto's injuries were properly healed, Minato had ordered a few med.nin Anbu to take him to the hospital. He had also retaken the role of Hokage to ensure that his son was not hurt by the villagers. Kushina had gone to the academy to teach the Updaten, coming Kunoichi, and the academy had become very slack during his absence. Minato was shaking with even more rage as he went through all of Naruto's files. On some occasions he had failed to show up for class and returned the following day with broken bones, and on other occasions he had been beaten by one of the numerous instructors. He was going to have a serious conversation with the instructors. In order to make a decision about whether to remain Hokage or find a successor to protect his son, Minato was currently waiting to speak with a number of people, all of whom had some sort of connection to his son. He looked at the people he would be speaking to. The Sandaime claims that Jiraiya the Gama Sennin, Naruto's godfather and sensei, didn't even meet his son until 3 days after the preliminary Chunin exam. Jiraiya had visited the village once a month to provide the Sandaime with reports, and at no point did he bother to check on his son. His own student and Naruto's sensei, Kakashi Hitaki, has shown obvious favoritism for the last Uchiha. He has taught neither Naruto nor Sasuke anything, and he even paired Naruto with a sensei who was incapable of teaching him anything while he went off to train the Uchiha, even though he knew Naruto needed the most training assistance. He had to give props to Iruka Amino, Naruto's sensei at the academy and, surprisingly, the only instructor who even attempted to teach Naruto. He even put his life in danger to save Naruto when another academy instructor attempted to kill him. When he heard a knock on his door, Minato looked up and said, "Enter." His wife and Iruka Amino were there, and he looked at the clock. "Ah, Kushi-chan, I see you brought in Iruka-san as I asked." Kushina blushed as she nodded. Minato had asked his wife to bring in Iruka Amino so he could speak with him at noon. It was a few minutes before noon, and if he knew her, she would be either directly on time or a little early. As she left to head back to the academy, she smiled at Iruka and said, "Yes dear, Iruka-san had no current meetings so he was able to come speak with you as you asked." Iruka entered the Hokage office and instantly went into a line of respect. Then Minato started laughing, and Iruka stopped, saying, "Yandaime-sama, I am honored that you requested me here and you are one of the few people who can be yourself around me, so it's okay, Iruka. But where are my manners?" Iruka sat down, amazed that the greatest legend of all time didn't care about formalities. "Just call me Minato, have a seat, there are things I wish to discuss with you." "Minato, what did you want to talk about?" Minato's face instantly took on a somewhat dejected look. "I wish to speak to you in regards to Naruto Uzumaki, my son." Iruka was astonished beyond belief when he learned that Naruto Uzumaki was the Yandaime's son. However, if Naruto was the Yandaime's son, he must also be Kushina Uzumaki's son, which meant, "Yandaime-sama, I know that at one point I hated him because of the Kyuubi," Iruka said, lowering himself to his knees and putting his hands together. "However, I swear on my family name that I don't see Naruto anymore for—" Whoa there, Iruka, I didn't say you believe Naruto is Kyuubi." Iruka appeared relieved as he got back up and reclined in the chair. "In fact, I never even asked you here to answer any of those questions. So, Minato, what did you want to talk to me about?" At that moment, Minato's face was filled with despair. "Tell me about my son. Was he a good kid? Did anyone ever watch out for him during his time at the academy?" Iruka was wearing a contemplative look. To be honest, Minato, it's difficult to respond to that question, but before he spoke, Iruka sighed, "I'll see what I can do." He had a worse academy experience than any other child. Iruka winced as Minato started clutching the side of his desk. The principal was fired for child abuse. The newer principal was a little better, but not by much. On the first day, he was sent to the principal's office where he was paddled for speaking out of turn, when all he was doing was answering a question correctly. For the smallest infractions, like bumping into a student, protecting himself from other students' attacks, or correctly answering questions, he would constantly punish Naruto by cleaning all the blackboards, mopping the hallways, and even cleaning the restrooms. Minato was holding his desk so tightly that it was starting to break. "Iruka, anything else?" At that moment, Minato was running out of patience. "Well, Naruto entered the academy 2 years before everyone else, as far as I can recall. After his 4th year at the academy, I began teaching him. Iruka looked down at him at that point, saying, but by then the damage had already been done. He no longer tried to do well in class, thinking he would be punished, and he went off to get the least amount of attention, no matter how many times kids laughed at him for it. I tried for the 3 years he was in my class to show him that he could excel if he wanted to, that if he applied himself he wouldn't be hurt or punished. But he didn't trust me, or anyone else. Near the end of his second failed attempt at the graduation exam, he started to trust me. However, by that point, there was nothing I could do to help him get better. He had given up all training and was constantly dozing off. It was painful to see how far he had fallen. Minato stopped holding onto the table as a few tears streamed down his cheeks. Was Naruto a good kid, Iruka? Iruka let out a sigh at that. Naruto must have been the sweetest person in Konoha. He smiled despite the teacher's abuse of him in front of the class and the children's hateful glares that they inherited from their parents. However, I knew it was phony because I have never witnessed a child so young put on such a convincing front. Nobody was aware of his pain, and those who were refused to accept assistance from him. In the end, there wasn't a better kid in all of Konoha. At least not that I know of. Minato grinned at that. He detested putting his troubles on other people. Iruka, that's wonderful to hear. Tell me, did anyone watch out for him? That was when Iruka was depressed. Minato. I was the only person in the entire academy who took care of him. But in the whole village, 3 people, including myself, were openly supporting him. Minato growled at that reality, saying that only Tuchi and Ayame Ichiraku were watching out for him. With a sigh of frustration, Minato gripped his desk and let it go. Other than those 2, the only people who protected him were on Sandaime. Sama's orders, and even then, they performed a dreadful job. Minato was going to call his secretary when he said, "Thank you, Iruka. That will be all." Minato turned to face Iruka. "I understand that you will be talking to other people besides me, but may I ask why you spoke to me first?" Minato gave Iruka a smile. "I first spoke with you for the following reasons. 1. You were the simplest to locate, and 2. Iruka took the try-pronged kunai that Minato was giving him and said, "If you ever need my assistance, use that, and depending on what situation it is, I will come to you or you will come to me." Minato opened a drawer and said, "I want you to keep this." Iruka was taken aback by this sudden change in circumstances. Minato started to laugh. "Minato, thank you, I." Then Iruka stood up and saluted, saying, "Don't worry, Iruka. Just make sure that you keep teaching those students of yours." Iruka ran through the door, and Minato laughed. "Hi, Yandaime. Sama." He scowled as he waited for his next appointment, which was with his student Kakashi Hitaki. He had taught Kakashi that he should never show partiality to any of his students, which is exactly what Kakashi had done. In addition, Kakashi had the audacity to propose his team for the Chunin exams when he knew that only one of them was prepared, which made him unhappy. After waiting for 30 minutes, Minato became impatient and exclaimed, "Anbu." 4 members of Anbu rushed into the room and said, "Bring me Kakashi Hitaki now." The Anbu promptly fled to locate the slothful Cyclops, and 10 minutes later they returned to the office with a beleaguered Kakashi. "Hey everyone, really?" The Anbu threw Kakashi to the ground and they left the room, saying, "Oh hi sensei, how are you? I was going to see Minato." "Sensei, as soon as I finished paying my respects to Obito." Kakashi turned to face Minato and grinned as usual. Pulling out his orange book, Kakashi turned to the most recent page and then, thwack. Slowly looking up, Kakashi saw that Minato was furious as a kunai tore through his book and nailed it to the wall, shocking him. "I will personally cut off the very thing that makes you a man if you ever read that book in front of me again, Kakashi. Am I clear?" Kakashi gave a terrified nod, but he continued to look sorrowfully at his book. "Sit down, Kakashi." Now, when Minato unleashed a significant amount of killing intent, Kakashi practically ran to the seat. "I need some answers to a few questions, and you will provide them, am I right?" Kakashi gave a head nod. "Who is on your genin team? What skills have you taught them, and why are the questions now? Any queries that follow your explanation will be addressed, regardless of the individual's preference." Right now, as Minato gradually withdrew the killing intent, Kakashi shuddered. Kakashi was trembling. Why was his sensei upset with him? "My genin team consists of the Rookie of the Year Sasuke Uchiha, last of the Uchiha clan, Kunoichi of the Year Sakura Haruno, and the dead last Naruto Uzumaki. Now, tell me what you have taught the team as a whole," Minato said, nodding. "Don't even consider lying to me." Talk Kakashi. "I went to great lengths to set up multiple detecting seals in this room." At that moment, Kakashi was perspiring because he was terrified of his sensei. Minato looked at Kakashi and raised an eyebrow, saying, "As at. Team I taught them teamwork exercises and tree walking. That is all you taught newly graduated genins who were sent straight into the Chunin exams at a time when their chances of being killed are extremely high. I find it interesting that you did not teach the team properly, when I made it very clear when I was your sensei that favoritism will not be tolerated. Kakashi nodded his head slowly as the intent to kill grew. Sensei At that moment, the room's murderous intent surged. Until I decide otherwise, Kakashi, you will call me Yondaime. Sama. Now, what were you saying? Kakashi inhaled deeply before responding. Minato then glared at Kakashi and said, Yondaime. Sama, I have not shown favoritism in my squad, I assure you. Minato took out several files, each bearing the name of a different genin, and said, oh really, let me read through your training reports on your genin. Oh, here we are. Sasuke Uchiha, last of the Uchiha clan. Minato opened the folder and started looking through the different documents to find the list of skills taught. Should we look to see what lack of favoritism has taught him? I do believes we shall. Well, here we are. The list of jutsus is as follows. Raiden, Nagashi, Kaden, Ryuka no Jutsu, and what do we have here? Chidori. A genin was taught a jutsu that we both agreed was a dangerous assassination jutsu. That only covers ninjutsu, how about we look at the genjutsu, said Kakashi, flinching in fear. That only covers ninjutsu, how about we look at the genjutsu? Minato glared at Kakashi, scrunching up the folder as he spoke. And last but certainly not least, taijutsu and chakra control. He looked at the paper, saying, for chakra control, you have taught him water walking, leaf balancing, and basic kunai balancing. Now taijutsu, I see that you have taught him goken, the standard Hitaki style of fighting, and some basics in the Uchiha style of taijutsu. Minato put the folder down and said, now with the Hitaki style of fighting, I can't do anything because you have absolute say who you teach it to. Sasuke is the rightful owner of the Uchiha fighting style, but the Goken is a dojo style of taijutsu, and based on your reports, it appears that you only learned this fighting style by imitating the taijutsu style and then teaching it to the Uchiha. It is strictly forbidden to teach dojo techniques outside of the dojo. At this point, Kakashi was perspiring profusely. I am surprised that Maeda Guy has not filed charges for stealing techniques from a dojo and then teaching them to someone who is not part of the dojo. Minato slammed his fist into the desk, causing it to crack, and said, Yondaime. Sama, you have to understand that Sasuke was fighting against a strong opponent and he needed those techniques just to survive. Your other pupil didn't, either. How can you explain to me how Naruto Uzumaki, the year's dead last, could have survived that battle with such mediocre skills and without Kyuubi's chakra, against the rookie of the year from the previous year who had no trouble attempting to kill his own family? Kakashi was trembling in terror as his sensei made everything Tsunade said seem like a slap on the wrist. Since he couldn't have won in the first place, I assumed he would be able to use Kyuubi's chakra. He is completely incompetent as a shinobi. The desire to kill increased dramatically. No shinobi abilities. A person who has escaped Anbu, broken into the Hokage vault, stolen the Forbidden Scroll, learned an A-ranked Kenjutsu in a few hours, and created original battle tactics at the last minute is hardly a shinobi Kakashi, in my opinion. Minato took out a file on Naruto and started to look through the pages, but he eventually stopped at his training list. In the 6 months that you have been Naruto's sensei, you have taught him tree walking and nothing else, Minato said. Did you even bother to teach him anything? Oh wait, I will answer that by listing what you have taught him. Teamwork activities that aid in Uchiha's skill development are not considered training skills, Kakashi said. Minato slammed the file onto his desk. According to the Sandame's reports, you essentially insisted that he and the Uchiha be added to your team. However, you have taught him nothing at all during the time you have been his sensei. He learned all of his skills on his own. When there were multiple other Junin who were willing to teach him, why did you insist on having him join your team if you had no intention of training him in the first place? This would have hindered his development as a shinobi. Answer me, Kakashi. Kakashi was holding his bladder because he was so intent on killing. Yondaime. Sama, because Naruto and Sasuke were generally rivals, I insisted that Naruto be on my team. I believed it would aid Sasuke's development. You have to realize, Yondaime. Sama, that I was acting in Obito's honor. I wanted Naruto to compete with Sasuke, but not to the same extent. The air became so cold that Kakashi thought he saw his breath. It was the only way to ensure Sasuke would stay faithful to the village. So let me be clear. In Obito's memory, you made it impossible for Naruto to succeed as a shinobi in order to train the Uchiha. You will no longer be training Team 7 Kakashi, so take your precious Uchiha and train him to your heart's content. However, I will not allow you to impede my son's development, Minato said after Kakashi nodded. What? The person whose growth Kakashi had been impeding was shocked, saying, "Oh God, what have I done?" Minato. Sensei you have lost the right to call me Sensei Kakashi. You have taken all that I have taught you and thrown it out the window. You say you are honoring Obito's memory. From what I have seen, you are disgracing it. I am ashamed to call you my student. Kakashi got down on his knees and started to cry. When Minato backhanded him, Kakashi grabbed his cheek and stared into his sensei's angry eyes, saying, "Yandaime Sama, please, I beg you. Please give me a chance to redeem myself. If I had known Naruto was your son, I would have, slap. What would you have done? Favored him." When he realized his mistake, Kakashi let his head fall and started to walk towards the door. One more thing, Kakashi. Kakashi stopped in his tracks, not bothering to turn around. If you are late for tomorrow's meeting, or any meeting after by even a minute, I will rip out your Sharingan eye and destroy it right before your eyes. Obito's memory be damned. Minato went back to his desk. Get out of my sight. Kakashi nodded his head and left the office where he shunshined off, breaking down in tears as he arrived home. Minato was trying to relax because he knew that the next person he would encounter would aggravate him the most. At last, he did so when he heard a knock on the door and the words, "Enter," were spoken. A very irate secretary entered. Jiraiya. Sama is here, Yandaime. Sama, Jiraiya must have been insulting her about her appearance. There was no room for debate in Minato's tone, which said, "Send him in." Jiraiya waltzed in with a displeased frown on his face, and the secretary stepped aside. "Hi, Minato. How are things going?" Minato laughed and glared at Jiraiya, saying, "Look, let's move this meeting along quickly. I need to return to my research." Jiraiya's face took on a serious expression as he started to explain, "Yes, of course, as it seems that your research is far more important than your duties to your godson." Now Minato, I know I haven't been the best godfather, but, shut up Jiraiya and sit down. I don't want to hear your explanation unless you have something that will deny the facts that I have here, and don't even think about lying to me. Jiraiya breathed a sigh of relief. Now, we will start off with this report right here. Minato held up a folder containing information about Tsunade, saying, "I was wondering where Tsunade was, until I reads this." Minato opened the folder and started reading. The fact that the Sandaime were familiar with the corpse clone jutsu when you were the only one with that ability intrigues me. And I can tell you that the corpse clone jutsu is a skill that is only taught in your family. You only learned it completely a week before the Kyuubi attack, and the Sandaime was always busy, so you couldn't have taught him. Would you mind explaining to Tsunade how Sarutobi was able to present a corpse clone that looked like my son? Jiraiya started to shiver a little because he knew he was in deep trouble right now. Sigh. I created Minato, the corpse clone. We had to make sure that no one discovered that it was your son because it was widely known in Konoha that she was your child's godmother and that this would have sparked rumors. The intent to kill increased dramatically. Why was what you did necessary? Naruto would have been safe from all enemies, so I don't care that people would have discovered he was my child. Jiraiya swallowed, aware that he was unable to think of a valid explanation. So tell me, Jiraiya, why it was necessary to tell Tsunade that the only reason she returned to Konoha was dead. The intent to kill was more heinous than anything Tsunade had ever done. Minato, I know you are angry, but... While Minato folded his hands in front of his face, Jiraiya nodded his head and said, I'm angry because you peeped on my wife, you based our honeymoon on one of your books, and you gave my wife a spaghetti string bikini that barely covered her unmentionables for her birthday shower. Now I'm furious. You sent one of the best medics away from Konoha by telling her the only reason she came back was dead, and you even went so far as to present a corpse to her by using that damn corpse clone jutsu, Jiraiya said, leaping out of his seat as Minato slammed his fist into the desk. One version 2 supplied the corpse clone jutsu, and on top of that, not only do you send away his godmother, but you never bothered to check in on my son to see if he was okay, and you never bothered to raise him like I asked, Jiraiya mentioned just before she spoke. I know that you visited the village at least once a month to deliver your spy network reports because I have read Sarutobi's reports. You even declined to fulfill your role as his godfather in order to examine a woman's chest when Sarutobi suggested that you check up on him, saying, sorry, I have to get back to my research. Jiraiya got to her feet. Damn it, Minato. I know I messed up, but Minato's icy glare on him was worse than the Kyuubi's savage gaze. Now sit down. I asked you one simple thing, Jiraiya. One little thing, he said, swallowing the lump in his throat before slowly sitting down. And that one small thing was that you keep my son safe and watch out for him. And that's not even possible. Jiraiya wanted to object, but he knew he had been defeated and was determined to make amends for his careless errors. Minato interrupted him once more, saying, "Minato, I know what I did was wrong, but don't think I haven't heard about how you trained my son for the Chunin exams. Tell me, Jiraiya, because when is it a good idea to throw a 12-year-old who has never received any formal training in chakra control off a cliff so he can use a type of chakra he has never received any training in to summon a huge toad?" Jiraiya started to perspire, but he believed he had a solution. Minato ripped a piece of the desk out with the hand holding it, saying, "Minato, I felt it was the only way to get him to properly use summoning. When he was learning how to summon, did you teach him anything, or did you just demonstrate the procedure in hand signals and then leave to visit girls while he pleaded for assistance?" Jiraiya looked down, aware that he had been beaten. With a shocked, horrified expression on his face, Jiraiya said, "At this point, Jiraiya, I realize what a mistake I made." Minato returned to reviewing the various reports. "You will not be allowed anywhere near my son so long as I feel you are inept, and I doubt you will ever change my mind." "Minato, please, he is my fucking godson." Crash! A kunai laced just above Jiraiya's sternum left him pinned against the wall, gasping for air, in just 2 seconds. "I have made my decision, and you will abide by it. 12 years ago, you forfeited your right to be Naruto's godfather." As he made his way back to his desk, Minato pushed Jiraiya against the wall and said, "You have 24 hours to prepare yourself for a mission to retrieve Tsunade. You will tell her the whole truth. Her wrath be damned." Jiraiya was taking deep breaths as Minato assigned him a task he was afraid to perform. When Jiraiya saw Minato toss the kunai between his legs, he slowly looked down and said, "Are you kidding? Tsunade will kill me." Thwack. Fortunately, the kunai only caught his clothing. "You'd better hope she kills you because I'm going to punish you for all of your sins if you don't accept this mission. I'm getting tired of this village quickly." Jiraiya nodded his head and walked out of the room, fearing the consequences if he didn't. Minato lost it when Jiraiya left, saying, "Triple A ag." He charged 2 Rasengans and destroyed the office library before releasing a chakra pulse that broke the windows and grabbing the desk, which was already beyond repair, and throwing it out the window, narrowly missing a few approaching Chunin. Minato broke down and started crying after letting out his pent-up anger. He was so ashamed of his village because they had disregarded his last request, mistreated his son, and he didn't even think they were his parents. He was determined to make amends. Minato got to his feet, his eyes puffy. Despite his secretary's terrified looks, Minato went to his office door and kicked it open, saying, "It's time this village learned who they have been abusing." Next day, meeting with Junin as he combed through various logs about the Junin, including the ones who had personally asked to train his son, Minato was looking at the 3 rookie Junin, Kurenai Yuhi, Asuma Sarutobi, and Kakashi Hitaki. He had also called in several other Junin to help, including Enko Midarashi, Shiranui Genma, and an Enbu named Tenzo. There were also many lesser Junin, and Maida Guy was looking at Kakashi with dismay. Doesn't want potential to be wasted, and he is kinda cute. Enko Midarashi, an 18-year-old single woman who specialized in torture, interrogation, assassination, and assault, lived a life that was nearly as horrible as Naruto's but was spared most of the wrath due to her terrifying skills. The next one was Kurenai Yuhi, a 23-year-old single genjutsu expert who had a relatively sheltered upbringing until the death of her parents at the age of 8. She hates fangirls and became devoted to the kunoichi system. Her reason for asking Naruto was that she can't stand to see her favorite Hyuga's crush be held back by hateful Junin. 24-year-old Asuma Sarutobi, who is unmarried and skilled in close combat and wind-based jutsu, is the heir to the Sarutobi clan but has since renounced that title. She says she wants to train Naruto in order to make up for my father's mistakes. After evaluating them and concluding that changes were necessary, he looked up at the Junin and was generally impressed with the 3 who had asked for his son. To introduce the new team assignments to you all, I called you all here today. I see that some teams are very effective, but the majority are not in the best of shape, so not all of them will be replaced. Junin blushed at the compliment. Maida Guy is the only team I have seen that is made up of genin that works. Minato laughed and said, "Ah, Yandaime. Sama, you flatter me with your youthful praise." He had always liked Guy and was always full of energy, and he frequently hoped that Kakashi would inherit Guy's qualities. The majority of the Junin scowled at Kakashi as he said, "Anyway, I feel that the following teams are imbalanced and must be improved. I will also set up several programs that will help in their underlying skills." Minato produced a folder labeled Team 7. Kakashi appeared visibly embarrassed by this. Starting with Team 7, the team will be disbanded and Kakashi will completely apprentice the Uchiha, since he seems incapable of showing anything but favoritism. Anko Mitarashi will be responsible for enhancing the different kunoichi. Hinata Hyuga is the only kunoichi from this year's graduating class who exhibits even the slightest promise, and even then, she requires some help with her abilities. Anko was smiling at the idea of putting all graduating kunoichi through a 2-week training session to iron out any kinks in their skills. Minato produced a sheet that read, under Asuma Sarutobi, Shikamaru Nara, Shoji Akamichi, and Shino Aburame, under Tenzo, Kiba Inuzuka, Ino Yamanaka, and Sakura Haruno, and under Kurenai Yuhi, Hinata Hyuga, and Naruto Uzumaki. Namikaze. The genin teams will now be rearranged as follows. As Minato turned to face the foolish Junin, Kakashi started to shake in terror. What? A Junin cried. How can the demon brat carry the honorable name of the Namikaze? The Junin obviously didn't know when to stop talking. He carries the name Namikaze because he is my son. Do you have a problem with that? A kunai that was hurled with such force that it passed straight through the Junin's head silenced him. Hell yeah, I have a problem with it. I refuse to believe that the demon is here, Squelch. When everyone looked around, they saw that the person who threw the kunai was a very angry Kushina. Between each finger, she withdrew 3 kunai and raised them to her face. Anyone else wish to insult my son? Kushina instantly smiled as everyone shook their heads. Good. She put away her kunai and walked over to sit on her husband's desk. As he summoned the Anbu to remove the body, Minato laughed at his wife. They obeyed, albeit reluctantly. Shiranui Genma interrupted Minato as she was about to say, Yandaime. Sama, does Naruto know you are his father? Kushina and Minato were devastated. Minato spoke, and Genma became perplexed. Knowing that Naruto's life was dreadful, Genma looked down at that and said, we told him we were his parents, but he doesn't believe us. Years of this village hate, scorn, and torment have worn away any and all hopes of ever having a loving family. I will be announcing to the whole village tomorrow that Naruto is my son. The reasons for this is because I want my son to be at the announcement and he should be out of the hospital tomorrow. Kurenai responded to a question that was on her mind. Minato started rubbing his fingernails against the desk and asked, if I may ask Yandaime. Sama, why is Naruto in the hospital? The fact that a shattered femur was regarded as a minor injury for Naruto shocked everyone. In my son's case, a minor case of a shattered femur that will finish healing by tomorrow. All but Kurenai left the office, saying, that is all, you are all dismissed. They had more questions for the Yandaime. At the mention of Kakashi, Minato sneered, Yandaime. Sama, why did you place your son with me? Surely Kakashi would have been better suited to train him. My former student has been my son's sensei for the past 6 months, and in that time he has only taught him tree walking. No Kurenai, I chose you because unlike other senseis you will not show favoritism. I also think that you can bring out the best in my son. Kurenai was pleased with the compliment but fled. While a certain Hyuga was scheduled to visit Konoha's resident blonde, Minato returned to her job and Kushina started her journey back to the academy. Hinata Hyuga had just arrived at the medical facility. She and her father had arrived a few hours earlier in an attempt to talk to Naruto. Rewind for the same reason, one Naruto Uzumaki, Hinata and her father were making their way to the hospital. Heishi wanted to express his gratitude to the blonde for making Neji see reason and returning his nephew. Hinata was concerned about Naruto's well-being. When the Hyuga clan learned of Naruto's injury, the majority of them genuinely expressed concern. With the exception of the elders, who genuinely couldn't care less, but they did express gratitude to Naruto. Not just for lifting Neji out of his rut, but also for providing Hinata with support. The typical person at the front desk was absent when Heishi and Hinata arrived at the hospital. Heishi sneered at the woman's memory. He had always detested her for what she had done to the young blonde. Calmly, he approached the desk and said, I would like to know Naruto Uzumaki's room number. The woman behind the desk looked up and responded. The woman resumed reading the documents while Heishi attempted to reason with her. Yandaime. Sama has ordered that no one enter his room. You will need the Hokage's signature to meet with him. Do you have it? Heishi shook his head. Then I cannot give you the room number. The woman turned to face Heishi and said, please, I need to speak with him, it is urgent. She returned to her paperwork as Heishi turned to go to the Hokage tower, hoping his resurrected friend was in a good mood. Get the Hokage's signature, but I would wait a few days. He currently isn't in the best of moods. Heishi was not aware that his daughter was planning a break.in when she ran behind a tree. Final flashback when her father went to the Hokage tower, Hinata left him. In a flash, she had planned to see her Naruto-kun. She only needed to begin now. Hinata carried a baked good into the lobby. To the doctors of the Konoha hospital, was written on the food. She approached the desk and said, "Anyo, excuse me." The receptionist turned to face Hinata and said, "I brought a baked good for the staff." The woman behind the desk grinned. As the woman reached for a small portion of the food, Hinata nodded, "Oh, how thoughtful, may I?" She grinned after taking one bite. Then, as she hit the ground, she started to sway. After giving her a pitying glance and turning the food's note around to read, "Do not eat," Hinata hurried behind the desk and searched through the names until she came across Naruto's. He was in the West Wing, room 213. She ran to the room with a smile on her face, searching the whole West Wing for the door she sought. She looked around to make sure there were no guards and cautiously activated her Byakugan. She saw that the two guards on the ledge above Naruto's window were dozing off. Though she wouldn't say it aloud, Hinata sighed at the Anbu members' obvious lack of drive to carry out their duties. She entered Naruto's room after carefully opening the door. When she discovered that her Byakugan was still active and that she could see through his clothing, she started to blush violently. Hinata had to control herself, but wow, that was tough. She would faint whenever she saw perverted images of Naruto in her mind, which is the only reason she hasn't jumped him in the last few months of being a kunoichi. She approached Naruto's bed and gazed at his natural features while gradually turning off her Byakugan. As he slept, she gazed at the blonde's face and allowed a smile to appear on her face. Naruto-kun, if only I could express how I feel. She touched his whisker lines with one finger. When he woke up in his sleep, she snapped her hand back. He must have sensitive whisker lines. He purred when she ran a finger over his whisker lines. She continued to look at Naruto while giggling. When Hinata saw the two Anbu from earlier, she eeped and turned her head around, asking, "Having fun there?" As the other Anbu laughed, Hinata bowed her head in embarrassment and asked, "Did you honestly think that the two of us were asleep?" The other Anbu looked at the blonde and sighed resignedly, saying, "Normally we would be taking you in for violating orders set by the Hokage himself, but since you don't seem to want to hurt the Gaki in any way, we will let this slide. Now get out." Hinata eeped again and fled for the door. They both nodded in agreement and returned to their posts, saying, "Yeah, she had better fess up her feelings before some other girl claims him." The following day at last, Naruto had left the hospital and was making his way to the town square. With all the civilians staring at him with hatred, he felt very uneasy. Naruto snorted when the Yondaime called them all to the front of the Hokage tower to make an announcement. He likely wanted to publicly announce that he was a Jinchuriki. As long as he became strong enough to become Hokage and receive some recognition, he didn't really care anymore. Indeed, it meant that all of his supposed friends would desert him, but whatever, he never expected to make friends in the first place. Unaware of the pairs of eyes observing him, Naruto let out a tired sigh as he awaited the Yondaime's announcement. The Hyuga the elders and Heishi were examining the blonde and talking about what they thought of him. They certainly didn't like the boy when he dyed all of their underwear pink, when he put special explosive notes in their pillows, which caused them to explode, or when he sneaked into the compound and dressed the most serious Hyuga elder in a clown suit that he was unable to take off. They were talking about how they could pay back the blonde, who they considered to be the most powerful shinobi in the years to come, because none of them saw Naruto as the Kyuubi. They could tell he was unaffected by the demon because of their Byakugan. Looking at the blonde thoughtfully, Heishi said, "Heishi Sama, I think we should start our plan soon. Even though he is a nameless orphan, he is still quite a powerful shinobi." Heishi continued to stare at the blonde, wondering why the normally cheerful child was in such a short mood. Yes, and on top of that he has managed to do the two things we have been trying to do for years: get Neji out of his mightier-than-thou routine and break our heiress from her shell. His usual level of energy had diminished. The elders nodded their heads and turned back to the Hokage tower to await the upcoming announcement. "We will discuss this after the Yondaime's announcement, agreed?" they asked. The Kakashi, in the hopes of one day getting close enough to the blonde to apologize for being such a bad sensei. Kakashi was staring at him. In an attempt to persuade sensei, the Yondaime to let him serve as his son's sensei once more, he had accumulated as many jutsu as he could locate. Kakashi tried not to cry as he looked back at the Hokage tower after failing his team once more. Alongside Sasuke was clenching his jaw at the blonde, wondering how she could have outperformed him. "I should have that Dobi's power, but whatever." Sasuke turned his head to the tower, grinning at his scheme. "I just need to be patient, then I'll go to the Yondaime and demand he train me, then I can kill him." In the office of the Hokage, Kushina and Minato were observing Naruto through the crystal ball. Their plan was intended to help their son understand that he is, in fact, their son. How they hoped he would believe them, how they hoped they could compensate him for the suffering he had to go through. Kushina glanced at the clock and nodded her head as she made her way to the door. Minato said, "It's time." To reach the summit of the Hokage tower, the two utilized Minato's Hiraishin. Overall point of view, the flash of light signaling the arrival of the Yondaime was seen by the shinobi, various merchants, and villagers at the front of the Hokage tower. With many of them expecting the demon to be put to death, the whole crowd cheered for the Yondaime's arrival. As the Yondaime approached the stand with the Red Death in tow, the shinobi applauded his arrival. "They meet me with love, but my son is met with scorn." Minato glared at the people. Kushina also glared at the people, but her eyes softened upon seeing her son. He appeared unconcerned as he gazed at them. With a sigh, she hoped that this would work. The people of Konoha were perplexed. What was the Yondaime discussing? Minato took the podium and said, "People of Konoha, as you can see, I have returned from the dead. When Orochimaru invaded the village, he brought me and my wife back from the dead with a forbidden jutsu. Most would be pleased to be brought back to life, while I am pleased to be alive again. It is for reasons that are far different from what you would think." Minato spoke up before anyone else did. "But to understand this, I will have to go back to when I did 12 years ago. The village of Konoha was attacked by the most powerful of the Biju, the Kyuubi no Kitsune. You were told that the demon was killed. But even I, the greatest seal master, could not kill the demon, so I did the next best thing. I sealed the nine-tailed fox away in the body of a newborn that has lived amongst you since then." With civilians drawing knives and shinobi staring at him with disdain, Naruto started to look around uneasily. "So that's why he set up this announcement. He wants the pleasure of seeing me get killed. Oh well, not like the bastards haven't tried to kill me before." Naruto sighed as he observed the crowd gradually approaching him. The crowd was taken aback when the Yondaime said, "But after what I have seen, I should have just let this damn village burn." What was the Yondaime talking about? "What are you talking about, Yondaime? Sama, what have we done to deserve such a fate?" A civilian managed to yell loudly enough for the Yondaime to hear, but the Yondaime silenced the civilian with a dose of killing intent and spoke in an obviously aggressive manner. The civilians were perplexed, the shinobi were intrigued, but those who understood the Yondaime's meaning were staring down in embarrassment. "You deserve such a fate for how you treated my legacy, that's why." The final straw was when Minato and Kushina said, "What legacy? How have we treated your legacy to make you think we deserve death? In fact, why do you not tell us who your legacy is so we may properly honor him? Then we can kill the demon that took your life." When the civilians saw Naruto's reaction, the shinobi began to piece it together. "You disgust me. What the hell was I thinking when I took the title of Hokage? Do you all mean to tell me that none of you noticed that my son was right in front of all of you? And throughout all these years you have abused him? How can you all be so blind? My legacy, and the one you abused, and the person that I used to save all of your wretched lives was my son, Naruto Uzumaki," Minato said, releasing as much killing intent as he could before pointing to Naruto. Both the shinobi and the civilians were shocked by what he had done, but they all looked at Naruto. "I know you hate me since I hold the demon that killed you and your wife, but seriously, man, don't you think you were going a bit overboard?" Minato and Kushina used Hiraishin to approach him. The civilians were shocked. "For the love of Kami, if you want to hurt me so bad, get your damn shinobi to fucking torture me. Seriously, is it even necessary for you to go to this length to try and hurt me?" they asked. As Minato gestured to Naruto's collar, Naruto said, "Okay, seriously, I may not have paid that much attention to most of Iruka's lectures, but I do know you need one of those damn kunai to warp with that technique. How the hell did you get here when there is no kunai?" Naruto reached for his collar and peered inside, where he saw a complex seal. Minato would have said something else, but his son grabbed the jacket and threw it to the ground. "My son, what are you doing?" Naruto gave him a grumpy look. "I had that placed there so I could come to your aid in an instant, my son." Minato was shocked that someone had previously attempted to pass for his parents. "I stopped falling for those damn routines after the third one when the person who was my mother slipped a lethal poison in my dinner and threw me into a fucking river." Minato got on his knees and started crying as he held onto his son's shoulders. "Would you stop it with the 'I am your father' routine? I may have fallen for that trick the first 3 times, but I ain't falling for this one." With anger visible in his eyes, Naruto let his head drop and then snapped it up, pushing the Yondaime off of him as he yelled, "My son, please, I am telling the truth, I am your real father." He turned to face Kushina, who was crying uncontrollably, and said, "She is your mother, we are your parents. Damn it, Naruto, please believe us." Naruto turned around and started to leave, but he didn't make it 5 feet before he was turned around and made to face Kushina. "For the love of shit, just stop it with the fucking charade, because if I were your damn son, I wouldn't have been beaten nearly to death every fucking birthday I had. My damn instructors wouldn't have rigged my damn tests, and I definitely wouldn't have been used to hold the damn demon. What father could do that to their own son? All I am is an orphan brat who had his fucking parents killed at some point that you decided to use for the sealing." Please, Naruto, please believe us, my baby. You truly are our child. Naruto took her hand and pushed her away. Using his chakra, Naruto leapt onto a nearby roof and fled for his apartment, disregarding all the pleas from civilians, the excited whispers, and his parents' sobs of agony. Can't you two take a hint? I am not falling for it. Time lapse. Sitting in his apartment, Naruto was irritated beyond measure. He had been surrounded by people pleading for forgiveness, fangirls, and even the obnoxious Junin offering him training ever since the fucking Yondaime declared he was his son. Did the Yondaime really believe he was that naive? When someone started knocking on the door, he was about to make another cup of ramen, which he had to get a Yame to drop off because he couldn't leave his house without dealing with those obnoxious assholes. Okay, that's it, he said. Without even bothering to look at who it was, Naruto stomped to the door and slammed it open. Naruto slammed the door in the face of 3 shocked people, saying, "For the last fucking time, leave me alone. I am not the Yondaime's kid. No, I won't accept your fucking apology. No, I won't go out with you, and no, I don't want you to fucking train me. Just leave me the fuck alone." Beyond the door for the past week, 3 people had come to see Naruto and had attempted to speak with him, but it was simply impossible because of all the shinobi, civilians, and fangirls attempting to approach him. Kurenai Yuhi had attempted to explain the new team rosters to Naruto. When Naruto was first offered up, she had requested to be his sensei. However, she was forced to live with an Aburame and an Inuzuka because of Kakashi. She had every intention of training Naruto, even though she knew Kakashi only intended to use him for his own purposes. Admittedly, she also wanted to use him for her own purposes. She was ecstatic when the Yondaime announced her as Naruto's new sensei, but she never had the chance because of all the obnoxious civilians and Junin, and now that her student was so worn out, he didn't even want to speak to them. One tear dropped from Kurenai's eye and she looked down. The day before, Tsunade had just landed in Konoha. She beat Jiraiya so severely that he would not be performing any shinobi services for months after he told her what had happened more than 12 years prior. She went to the Sandame's house after learning where her godson lived and punched him so hard in the face that he would never get his fucking nose fixed. When she arrived at her godson's house to complete the task Kushina had asked her to do years prior, she was greeted by a door in her face and a blonde who was furious. Tsunade had lowered her shoulders in embarrassment and shed a few tears. Her father had informed Hinata that he fully supported her dating Naruto. She let out a fangirl squeal that would have embarrassed the whole Sasuke fan club because she was so happy. She was so happy that she spent hours running around the Hyuga compound, leaving the main family and most of the branches to question her sanity. She proceeded directly to Naruto's apartment, but the many fangirls blocked her access. When she eventually made it to the door, she was prepared to tell Naruto everything she wanted to say, including her secret fantasies and feelings of love, but before she could say a word, the boy she loved yelled at her. As Tsunade and Kurenai attempted to console the sobbing heiress, Hinata burst into a torrent of tears. Naruto sat back in his apartment and resumed eating when he heard sobbing coming from a fangirl. It was the first time he had heard it, and he went to assist her, but the damn girl nearly raped him. He disregarded it this time, not caring that he had just broken a girl's heart or that he had hurt 3 women. After a week, Naruto had finally heard Kurenai's explanation of the new team setup. Although he couldn't really call his previous team a team, he appeared a little miffed that it had been disbanded. At noon, he was supposed to meet his new team at Training Ground 12. Naruto had chosen to rise early in order to avoid the dreadful civilians, and he had not bothered to visit any stores. Before noon arrived, he had slept in a tree close to Training Ground 12. He leapt from the trees when he saw Hinata entering the clearing. When the heiress heard Naruto's voice, she flinched and said, "Hey Hinata." Since Naruto yelled at her, Hinata had become even more reclusive. It's true that he didn't realize it was them. He was simply mentally worn out from all the fangirls, but it still hurt. Hello, Naruto. K.Kun. She was worried that the Yondaime's public declaration that he was his son had driven Naruto into a permanent shell, never letting him approach another, because she had witnessed so many more fangirls being repeatedly turned away by Naruto. Hinata clenched her jaw in rage. The villagers were solely to blame. Had they simply followed the Yondaime's instructions and treated his son like a hero. That is, like a human being, Hinata, who frequently sobbed herself to sleep, would not have left her room except for team meetings, food, or the restroom. She sobbed herself to sleep for the remainder of the day while gazing at a photo of Naruto. One tear trickled down her eye, and Naruto saw it. He hastily retrieved a handkerchief and dabbed at it. Naruto gave Hinata a sincere smile and said, "I hate to see a girl cry." Hinata blushed as Naruto approached a tree, stunned by the blonde's daring move. For the first time in a week, she smiled, suggesting that Naruto may not have cut himself off from the outside world entirely. "Well, Yakumo, how do you think things will turn out?" Kurenai asked the final member of their team as they sat in a tree. Yakumo Kurama looked at her teacher and at the blonde. Kurenai nodded at her former apprentice and said, "I don't know, but she better say what she feels soon, or there won't be any chance for her at all." She felt guilty for not being able to assist her earlier, but she was determined to take the 3 Konoha failures and train them to outperform all previous shinobi. They would outperform the Densetsu no Sannin, and this group of Sannin would succeed. Looking through his papers, Heishi Hyuga had been searching for the form Minato had given him more than 12 years prior. He needed to persuade Naruto that the Yondaime was telling the truth, and it did not help that Naruto genuinely thought he was a bastard orphan that the Yondaime had used for the sealing. Heishi clenched his fist. Sarutobi was solely to blame for this. Naruto might never be able to confide in anyone again because of him, but if he could only locate that pointless document, he could convince Naruto that he was, in fact, the Yondaime's son. The Hyuga elders were also lending a hand. They had reviewed every comprehensive file they could locate. However, the files were typically filed by the branch family, and the branch family had a habit of making mistakes in the documents in order to irritate the elders. "URG, where the hell are those documents? We have been looking for them for the past 3 weeks. If we don't find them, then our plans are down the toilet," said Heishi, growing impatient. He sat down at his desk, wondering where the documents might be, and he worried that he might lose his chance if he didn't find them quickly. "If only you were her, my dear Hikari," Heishi said, glancing at the photo of his wife that was hanging on the wall, "then perhaps we might be able to do what we actually intended. So many years ago." In the interim, with Sasuke, Kakashi was sulking off to the side, while Sasuke was attempting to read his scrolls. He has become very irritated ever since it was revealed that Naruto was the Yondaime's son. Junin stopped visiting him and instead tried to train Naruto. The majority of his fangirls had left him. Sakura and Ino were the only 2 left, but Ino was gradually edging away from him. Kakashi no longer arrived late, but he continued to sit to the side and mope. He was holding a scroll the entire time he was sitting curled up in a ball, and every now and then he heard the Junin sob in a choked voice. "It doesn't concern you," was all Kakashi had said when he had asked him what was in the scroll. Now he was attempting to learn the highly coveted fire jutsu of the Uchiha family, which was incredibly difficult, to the extent that reading the specialized kanji would require a fully developed Sharingan. With an incompetent sensei watching from the sidelines, he was not going to learn anything, so he gripped the scroll angrily. In the office of Yondaime, Minato was furious because he had been receiving Junin after Junin attempting to train the blonde to win his favor ever since it was revealed that Naruto was his son. It had only succeeded in making him even more irate thus far. Furthermore, the terms of Suna's new treaty were undoubtedly not what he had hoped for. Kurenai, the newest team, has so far completed D through B rank missions. Naruto would wait outside until Kurenai emerged each time the mission report arrived. "Thanks to you, Sarutobi, I lost my son, and I might never get him back. Damn you." For 3 weeks, Minato had been trying to find a way to get his son to accept him, but the effort had been unsuccessful thus far. "I need some aspirin," Minato said as he read the treaty, sighing that this would only make matters worse. He pressed a button and spoke into the intercom, "Suzumi," and it clicked for a minute. "Yes, Yondaime. Sama, have someone go retrieve my son." "Of course, Yondaime. Sama, please forgive me, my son," he said, releasing the intercom button and reading the treaty once more. At the gates of Konoha, in order to complete the treaty agreement, the Suna entourage was making their way through the gates to the Hokage Tower. Gaara, Tamari, Kankuro, and a few Suna shinobi guards were part of the entourage. "This is the best day of my life." Tamari's broad smile said it all. Gaara and Kankuro were incredibly terrified of their Chan's new identity. Gaara was hiding far from Tamari when Kankuro whispered to her, "Is Chan alright?" "Honestly, I have no clue." Tamari was ecstatic because she had persuaded the council that this was the best course of action and that the person was more qualified for the job. "I'm hoping he agrees." Alongside Naruto, Kurenai had made a great deal of effort to get Naruto to talk, but he was very withdrawn due to the events of the previous 3 weeks. He claimed he didn't want to deal with the naive villagers, so he stopped leaving his house altogether. Because Sarutobi had broken multiple promises to Naruto's parents, she wanted to go straight to the former Sandaime and kick him where it hurts. Because of him, Naruto no longer had hope of starting a family and no longer trusted anyone. Naruto, who hardly knew how to read, was having a terrible time reading a scroll on an ancient taijutsu form from the Land of Blades. The Sandaime had never bothered to fix this issue because they were aware of it. Naruto had barely made it past the first paragraph thus far, so Kurenai made the decision to assist him. She approached and raised her gaze to meet the blonde's, saying, "Hey Naruto, how about I help you out?" Naruto gave Kurenai a quick glance before swiftly turning back to the scroll. Kurenai cringed at his tone when he said, "No thanks, why don't you go train Hinata and Yakumo? They're clan heirs, and are clearly more important than the bastard Kyuubi child." Following the announcement, he had come to the perverse realization that only those with noble blood would ever be deemed worthy of training, and since Naruto genuinely thought he was just some bastard orphan, thanks to the Sandaime, he decided that he was not worth it. He even went so far as to say he wasn't worth it. "Look, Naruto." Naruto cast a chilly glance at Kurenai. Kurenai snapped at Naruto as she released a tiny amount of killing intent, saying, "Listen, Kurenai. I don't want to hear it, okay? I am not the Yondaime's son, and I'm sure the Yondaime set you up to this so he can later order you to kill me." Naruto jerked up to glare directly at Kurenai, saying, "Listen here, Naruto, your father would never order someone to kill his own son." Naruto reached for his scrolls and started to leave, but an Anbu shunshined in front of him. "For the last fucking time, I am not his son. Go train the other two. I'm better off on my own anyway," he said. "Naruto Uzumaki, your father." A dose of murderous intent was thrown at the Anbu. The Anbu recovered from the sudden killing intent and proceeded, saying, "He is not my father." The Anbu turned to Kurenai and said, "He really doesn't need the shit he is dealing with. I really hope he opens up soon." Kurenai looked down as she spoke. "The Yondaime wishes to speak to you, Naruto." Naruto sighed and started to walk towards the Hokage tower. As Kurenai turned to face the final two pupils in the field, Tenzo shunned off, saying, "I hope so too, Tenzo, I really do. Okay, let's get back to training." Time skip. Office of the Hokage. Minato was anticipating both his sons and the Suna entourage's arrival. "What the hell, Minato? We want Naruto to accept us as his parents, not hate us. What were you thinking?" Kushina had just returned from her mission, and she was not happy with the treaty at all. Minato cringed as he listened to his wife. He knew Naruto would despise him for this, but they had to finalize his treaty. "Kushina, believe me, I do not like this either, but we have to finalize this treaty to prevent an all-out war." Kushina laughed at this. Minato gave Kushina a severe and contrite expression as he said, "Why do we even bother staying in Konoha? This village deserves to be burned to the ground for what it has done to our son." Kushina looked down as she realized why it would be a bad idea to take Naruto from Konoha, especially given how he views them. And how do you think that will work? From what we have seen, Naruto desires only one thing in life, to one day leave this village. "I want to leave this village, Kushina. Believe me, I do. But I can't do that when Naruto still holds feelings for this place. I can't do that to him." "Enter," was said as the door opened, revealing his secretary as the two watched the door as someone started knocking. Minato nodded his head and said, "Yondaime Sama, the Suna contingent has arrived." To the Suna group, the secretary gestured, "Send them in." Tamari was the first to enter, then Kankuro and Gaara. Tamari gave the Yondaime a smile. Minato opened her mouth to say, "Greetings, Yondaime Sama, when shall we begin the finalization of the treaty?" But the door was slammed open. Each of them turned their head in a different way. Kankuro was shocked. Gaara was grinning, Minato and Kushina were smiling nervously, and Tamari was glomping the person who entered the room. Naruto's head was between Tamari's breasts after she had glomped him. Naruto was polite enough to blush, but he brushed it off with a quick, "Get off me, please." Tamari grudgingly agreed. Naruto approached the Yondaime's desk and said, "You summoned me, Yondaime Sama." Naruto gave Minato a hopeful look. Naruto raised an eyebrow, not understanding what the Yondaime was discussing. "As you are likely aware, the invasion severely damaged Suna's forces, so we have finalized a recent treaty between our two villages." As Kushina moved forward, Minato sighed, "What are you getting at?" Naruto, the Suna Council, along with Tamari no Sabaku, believe that the best way to permanently secure our treaty is to have an arranged marriage between two of our shinobi. So why isn't the Uchiha here? Everyone was staring at Naruto as if he had another head. Obviously Suna will want their shinobi to marry someone of high standing, and I have not had any contact with Sasuke for the last 2 weeks, so I will not be of much help giving him the message that you want him to marry a Suna woman. As everyone started to look around anxiously, Minato and Kushina interrupted, saying, "Naruto, it's you who will be involved in the arranged marriage, not Sasuke." "Excuse me," Naruto said calmly, but his tone was one of obvious aggression. "Would the Suna shinobi leave for a few minutes, now?" The Suna team left the office, and Naruto erupted, "What?" as the door closed. Naruto, you must understand that, Minato attempted to say, but Naruto interrupted him. It's not bad enough that you ruined my childhood, prevented me from ever finding friends, and basically condemned me to an unending hell, but now you are using me as this damn village's business transaction. There might not be a single girl in this village that will ever like me in that sense, but there might be girls outside of Konoha's borders who will see past my affliction. Naruto, please, my son. Minato was silenced by a powerful dose of murderous intent, which the Kyuubi obviously heightened. I am not your son. The damn charade is getting really fucking annoying. I am tired of having to wake up in the middle of the night because some stupid Junin comes knocking on my door saying he is offering to train the Yondaime's son. I am also sick and tired of not being able to walk outside anymore because a bunch of fucking fangirls try to rape me. Enough with the fucking charade. The window behind the desk broke as Naruto abandoned his plan to kill. Minato noticed that Naruto's head dropped as he snorted in disgust. Naruto, if you won't believe me, who will you believe? If I get Sarutobi in here, will you believe me? What did Minato and Kushina mean when he said, the Sandaime, he is as much a cause of my pain as you are? Naruto, what do you mean? Sarutobi told us he did everything he could to protect you. Naruto laughed. I learned the truth about my Gigi 3 days prior to the finals, and he did everything he could to keep me safe. Rewind. After leaving the hospital, Naruto was making his way up the stairs of the Hokage tower, intending to ask Gigi if he could give him some scrolls to practice with, so that he could at least acquire a jutsu that would work against Neji. When Naruto reached the office, he was going to knock on the door when he heard a conversation. Naruto identified the voice as that of the grumpy female elder, Sarutobi. You have to kill that wretched demon, it is a threat to our village. The other voice was obviously that of the elderly goat, who said, I concur. If that demon is allowed to grow stronger, then our village is doomed. I have gone so far as to let the villagers beat Naruto without retaliation, but that is the furthest I will go. I will not kill him. Even if he were the Kyuubi, which he isn't, I wouldn't kill him because there is too great a chance that Kyuubi would escape. If he ever learns to use the Kyuubi's chakra, I've let the villagers beat him in the hopes that he will become obedient and provide Konoha with a strong shinobi. That is too risky. Killing him would be more efficient. There is too much of a chance that he will betray us. That's enough. My decision is final. Dismissed. With a pained expression in his eyes, Naruto retreated from the door. His Gigi had let them beat him, so Naruto turned and fled down the stairs, devastated that the only person he considered family was as evil as the villagers who mistreated him. Naruto had not even bothered to come to the office because he knew that if the Sandaime allowed him to be hated, he would hate him back, eye for an eye, after all. Final flashback. Minato and Kushina were trembling with anger because the Sandaime permitted Naruto to be beaten and shunned in order to make him obedient. With blood-red eyes, Naruto glared at Sarutobi while holding up his hand. Naruto, I am so sorry my son, he said. Naruto turned to go, but Kushina stopped him and gave him a hug, saying, Stop. I never want to hear about you being my father ever again. I am done with this damn charade. We're not lying, Naruto, so please, will you just crack? Minato hurried to his wife's side after Naruto freed himself from her hold and gave her a backhand. He was about to reprimand his son when he looked up, but he stopped when he saw his hate-filled eyes, which turned blood red and slitted as he glared at her. With a kunai drawn and aimed at his gullet, Naruto said, I am through with your bullshit. This is my last warning. Cut the charade, or I release the furball. Naruto left the office, leaving his parents in tears. As the Suna contingent watched, Naruto turned to face them and said, Find someone else to be your business transaction. I will have no part in it. He then left 2 irate brothers and a shocked Tamari behind. How dare he treat my Chan that way? Your blood will be with mother for what you did to my sister. Tamari collapsed. It's true that this was essentially a political marriage, but she had insisted on marrying Naruto because she had fallen in love with the blonde during the Chunin exam break. Rewind. After finishing her meal, Tamari was leaving a dango shop because the waiter had been making advances on her and she was desperate to leave. She was heading to her apartment when she heard a crash and turned to see a cat eating from a dumpster. Oh, feisty. I like em like that. The waiter walked forward as Tamari reached for her fan, but before she could swing it, the waiter shunshined forward and gave her a terrible kick to the stomach. She collapsed as the man grabbed her hair and undid most of her hair ties. I bet you're wondering how I was able to do that, me, a lowly civilian, ha. I am actually a missing nin from the now destroyed Heat Devil village, she said after turning around and being smashed in the face by a frying pan. The man reached out and tore off Tamari's shirt as he started to undo his buckle. I came to this village a year ago hoping to find some fun, and lo and behold I find a Suna Kunoichi. How delightful, you will be my 7th victim this year, he said. The man walked forward and climbed on top of Tamari, saying, "I am going to enjoy this." Tamari was about to get up when she felt a terrible pain in her side. "Oh, how do you like my little poison? I injected it into you when I first attacked you. In a few minutes you will be overcome by the second part of the toxin. A very delightful aphrodisiac." The man reached for his pants and started to pull out his member while Tamari was terrified. The man was now removing her underwear. "No, my virginity. I wasn't supposed to lose it like this. I was supposed to lose it to a man I love, please no." "Hi, jackass." After being struck in the face by a nearby garbage can, the waiter looked up, his eyes widening as he noticed Naruto Uzumaki evoking strong murderous intent. "Oh shish. He ran down the alleyway, but as the man attempted to crawl away, Naruto grabbed his shirt and threw him into a set of trash cans. Tamari winced as he saw the man's face get smashed up. "Come on." He smashed the trash can on the man's back. The guy collapsed as Naruto turned him over and began punching his face. "What's your problem, pal?" The nose was crack. Crunch, his eye, smash, the cheek. Crunch. Was the nose once more. "Come up here," Naruto said, pulling the man's face up and his fist back. He walked over to the trembling Tamari and said, "Hey, are you alright? Let's get you home." Tamari flinched away when Naruto reached out to her, so he took out a couple wads of cash from his pocket and said, "Here is some money. Go get yourself some clothes, something to eat, just stay out of the alleys." Naruto then got up and kicked the man in the ribs, and Tamari passed out. Final flashback when she awoke the following morning in her apartment. Baki Sensei informed her that a blonde child had carefully brought her here. She was ashamed of herself for participating in the invasion when she saw the blonde child again, and he had a huge heart because he showed them mercy even though they were enemies. Tamari collapsed to the ground in tears, but she looked up defiantly and said, "I will only have you, Naruto Uzumaki." After 3 days as Team Kurenai assembled in the Yondaimi's office, Minato did his best to refrain from mentioning that Naruto was his son. He would need to try a different strategy, but for the time being, he had to assign their missions. Naruto was the first to leave, and the other two followed. "Team Kurenai, you will be heading an escort mission. The client will arrive in the shopping district this afternoon." Team Kurenai nodded their heads and left. Minato glanced down at his desk, but he heard a knock on the door and quickly looked up. "What do you want, Kakashi?" he said as the door opened to reveal the last person he wanted to see. "Yondaime. Sama, I was hoping if, Kakashi said, lowering his head to avoid Minato's stare. Minato interrupted him before he could say anything more. "Kakashi, if this is another one of your attempts to get Team 7 reformed, then you are wasting your time. Go back to training your precious Uchiha. I will not let you stunt my son's growth." Kakashi defended himself. He takes out a scroll and says, "Yondaime. Sama, I have no intention of stunting Naruto's growth. Look. On here is every jutsu I know. I was hoping to teach them to Naruto." Minato interrupted him once more. "Did you find out he was my son before or after this?" Just as Minato was about to resume his work, Kakashi fell to his knees and started to practically beg, "I thought so, now get out of my sight." Kakashi became silent as he looked down. Minato. "Sensei, please, let me make amends for my mistakes, please let me help your son." Minato gave Kakashi a disgusted, sneering look and said, "You've done enough. Get out now." As Minato examined the mission form, Kakashi rose and walked out of the office. An A-rank mission. The goal is to keep actress Yuki Fujikaze safe while she travels to Yuki no Kuni. On a bench outside a movie theater, Naruto waited while Yuki Fujikaze, their target, played a princess in the film. Naruto was twirling a kunai between his fingers, and Hinata was staring at him from a distance while Yakumo was sketching in a notepad. At last, Naruto halted spinning the kunai and tossed it to the ground, saying, "All right, we've been waiting here for nearly an hour, and they ought to have arrived half an hour ago. Where is the fucking client? Since Naruto's ancestry was made public a month ago, he has become less patient, and it is beginning to have an impact on people around him." Yakumo became very angry with the blonde, mainly because she was sick of his outbursts. Hinata had also become more reclusive, believing that if she told Naruto how she really felt, he would completely reject her. This wasn't surprising, as last week, Naruto rejected a girl so severely that he sent her home in tears. Hinata had spent a whole week gathering the courage to ask him out, but when she saw how cruelly he rejected her, all of that resolve vanished into nothing. Just as Naruto started to pace, a horse with a woman on its back broke through the fence, and then roughly 6 more horses with armored samurai on their backs ran through the opening. "You two stop those samurai now. I'll get the woman," Naruto said, leaping swiftly onto the wall. Yakumo took out her drawing pad and quickly started to scribble before performing hand seals. Kurama Hajutsu. Mokasai Musha. On the outside, nothing happened, but inside the samurai's minds, they were fighting against living trees, but in reality, they were fighting each other. Naruto started to jump after the woman. Hinata and Yakumo approached the samurai, but stopped when Kurenai shunshined in front of them, nervously scratching the back of their heads as they slashed at the trees and ultimately knocked each other out. Team, I got some news. In the meantime, Yuki Fujikaze kept running through the streets, causing carts to topple over and scattering the civilian population. She saw an orange blur leaping over her with a frown on his face as she turned down an alley. She went down an alley and found herself squarely in the center of a festival, charging through, scattering people and sending cart owners fleeing as she made her way to the exit. In the meantime, Naruto was removing a set of balls with a rope fastened to them. He leapt higher into the air and started to swing the balls before hurling them at a nearby wooden pole, which broke and toppled, obstructing the entrance with the sign it was holding. Yuki drove right through the paper sign without stopping. This girl is going to do more harm if I don't stop her, Naruto swore, jumping off the building and landing squarely in her path. The woman appeared to accelerate, so Naruto leapt and jumped on the horse's back. Naruto glared at the woman and growled, and Yuki glared at the blonde, saying, "Get off my horse." She whipped the reins, and the horse started to gallop more quickly. Naruto reached for the reins and saw a group of young children playing in the road. "Idiot, stop this damn horse, you are going to," Naruto said. The kids screamed and fled when they saw the approaching horse, but a little 3-year-old girl was too startled to move and started to tremble as it approached. "Damn it." Naruto cursed to himself and grabbed Yuki after nearly reaching for the reins but losing them. The girl was only a few dozen feet away. The unexpected contact startled Yuki, but she was even more startled when Naruto yelled and dragged her and the reins back. The horse slammed its feet on the ground after feeling the reins being pulled and reared back just before he struck the girl. When the girl opened her eyes slowly and realized that the horse was only a foot away, she scampered back and ran to her mother, who had just ran out of the house after realizing that her daughter was in danger on the second floor. When Yuki dismounted the horse, the children recognized her and rushed toward her, yelling, "Can I have your autograph? Or, will you sign this shirt for me?" Yuki was about to yell at them when the back of her shirt was abruptly pulled back, dragging her to face a certain blue-eyed Jinchuriki. The reactions were mixed. "You stupid bitch, what the fuck was that stunt? Are you fucking blind? Because unless you are, there is no excuse for what you did while you were on your horse." Yuki struggled, but she was flung to the ground as Naruto pointed to the damage she had caused, saying, "You are lucky those people moved, or you could have injured somebody. Or worse." He looked behind her and said, "Just look at that girl." She turned to see the scared girl, shivering in her mother's arms, and he said, "If I hadn't stopped your damn horse, that girl would have been seriously injured, or dead." Yuki recoiled when Naruto yelled at her, got to her feet, and started to leave, but Naruto caught her arm and made her turn to face him. Her eyes widened as he said, "Now listen here, Yuki Fujikaze. You are coming with me. You are being guarded by my team on your way to Yuki no Kuni." He started to drag her away, but she refused to move, so he turned to glare at her and ended up getting sprayed in the eyes with a mace. He clutched his eyes as she ran off, and when he opened his eyes, he saw her blurry form run off, saying, "Damn bitch." He chased after her as she dashed into the retail area. Returning to Team Kurenai, the three Kunoichi sighed as Kurenai concluded her explanation that the samurai were actors and that the client was the target of their pursuit. Kurenai then raised a question that had been bothering her. "Where is Naruto?" The two girls were going to respond. "Yuki, get back here." The trio began to perspire. "Over there?" The three hurried toward Naruto's cries. "Naruto is back. Damn, where the hell did she go?" Naruto was running through the shopping district, searching for Yuki. He ran past a store, and a second later, Yuki emerged, wearing a feather boa and sunglasses. She glanced at Naruto, who was going to another store, before running down the street, never noticing him pop into smoke. After turning around, she ran down an alley, knocked over a couple of trash cans, and continued running until she got out of breath. "Thank Kami, I lost him," she sighed to herself as she looked around, and then she noticed a bar. I am a bit parched," she said as she entered the bar, oblivious to the section of the wall that abruptly wavered to reveal a blonde-haired shinobi. When Team Kurenai ran down the alley about 20 minutes later, Hinata was using her Byakugan to find Naruto's chakra. She looked around and noticed a trace of his chakra on a wall next to a bar, so she approached it and used her Byakugan to check for a trail, which she did find, leading into the bar. "What is he doing in there?" Kurenai sighed as they entered the bar and were taken aback by what they saw. Yuki Fujikaze was seated at the bar, and Naruto was occupied with a glass of sake at a nearby table when Kurenai approached him and grabbed the sake from him, saying, "Naruto, what the hell are you doing?" Naruto poured himself another glass of sake after giving Kurenai a quick glance. He was about to drink the sake when Kurenai slapped it out of his hand, breaking the cup and causing the sake to spill all over the place. "Well, I was thinking that while I wait here for Yuki over there to get drunk enough to pass out, that I can enjoy a few bottles of sake." "You are underage, so why are you drinking sake?" Glancing up at Kurenai, Naruto snatched up the sake bottle. He didn't bother with a cup this time, just guzzled down the sake bottle, saying, "Old enough to kill, old enough to drink, and have sex." He eventually set the bottle down, wiped his chin, and then turned to the bartender, saying, "Hey, bring me a bottle of hot sake." The bartender gave him a look. "Which would you prefer, our own recipe or one that was imported?" Before he spoke, Naruto assumed a contemplative stance. "What have I consumed?" The bartender responded after pulling out a bottle of the same beverage he had been consuming. Naruto grinned and said, "You have been drinking our recipe." Kurenai was furious now, and Naruto sat back and watched as Yuki drank another cup of sake. "Bring me a bottle of your imported sake." "Naruto, I don't care if you are legally allowed to drink sake or not, don't need to deal with one of my students getting drunk." Naruto glanced at Kurenai. Naruto looked and saw a man talking to Yuki. He appeared to be begging her, "Alright, it's taking too long for her to pass out. Plan B." Naruto concluded. "Kyuubi filters the alcohol before it affects me. I don't need to worry about something as trivial as getting drunk." Sandayu continued to beg her, "Yuki, we need you for this role, and no one else can play it." Yuki snatched up the sake bottle and started swirling it around. Yuki then drank another cup of sake. Just as she was about to take another gulp of sake, she said, "Oh, don't worry, this stuff happens all the time. The lead is replaced, the director replaced, it's just show business." She turned around and saw Naruto strike her neck with a knife, effectively knocking her unconscious. "And this is my business." In the meantime, Minato had gone through every last file, searching for Naruto's birth certificate, which was the only document he needed to prove Naruto was his son, in an attempt to find some semblance of evidence that Naruto was his son and that Naruto could not deny. He searched through more files, but he couldn't find anything. Kushina was searching the bookshelf across the office, hoping it might contain it. After sitting at his desk, Minato became so angry that he threw all the papers off it, saying, "God damn it, where the hell is that birth certificate?" In an attempt to locate the document, he opened the desk doors and took out all of the papers. When Kushina eventually stopped searching the bookshelf, he yelled, "Fuck! We won't be able to prove he is our son until we pass away if things continue this way." She struck a nearby table with her fist, smashing it to pieces. She sighed in frustration and took a seat in a nearby chair. "Okay, where the hell is that document? Only Hiruzen, who has been in this room since our deaths, would know where it is. Now, where did he put that damn document?" Minato cursed as he was about to go through the documents again, fearing he might have missed it in his enraged haste to find it, when the office door slammed open, revealing Sasuke Uchiha. "I want to be trained by you." As though he had developed a second head, the two shinobi turned to face Sasuke. As if it were poison, Minato spat out the word, "Kakashi," and glared at the Uchiha, asking, "What right do you have to barge into my office, and isn't Kakashi training you?" Kushina growled at Sasuke and yelled, "He isn't good enough. At the rate he is training me, I will never be able to kill my brother." Sasuke gave the woman a menacing smile and said, "You have the strongest Jonin in the village teaching you exclusively. If that isn't good enough, then I don't know what is." He turned to Minato, who was now perusing the papers, and asked, "Who else but the Yondaime Hokage himself?" Sasuke was obviously not giving up when he said, "I will not train anyone except for my son. All my techniques are family techniques, no exceptions. Then adopt me until I kill my brother. I would make a much better son than that Dobi." Smash! Sasuke shivered but persisted in his tirade as Minato turned to face him and glared at him, literally breaking the filing cabinet in two. "How dare you insult my son in my presence, Genin," Minato said. Sasuke was grabbed by the throat and slammed into the wall. Minato tightened his hold on his kunai and said, "Oh please, the Dobi doesn't even believe he is your son. He has essentially forsaken you. The Dobi will never see you as anything more than the person who condemned him to hell. That baka was too pathetic to be worthy of your training. If you train me, I will bring glory to your clan. Whereas that Dobi would simply disgrace it." Kushina gripped Sasuke's throat tighter than before. She threw him out the door and slammed it shut, saying, "You little wretch, if you ever insult my son again, I will kill you myself. After experimenting with one of his pronged kunai while seated at his desk, Minato slammed it into his desk. I have scoured every part of this office, and I have not found a single trace of the birth certificate, he said, sagging into his chair. He then turned to face his desk, quirking an eye when he noticed a piece of paper through the crack he had made in it. He then took out another kunai and started parting the wood with it. Kushina approached him after noticing what he was doing, saw the papers, and took her own kunai before joining him in parting the wood. Crack. A loud crack echoed through the air as Minato finally had enough and just tore the wood off with his bare hands. As he examined the papers, Naruto's birth certificate was immediately visible. Yes, here it is, now Naruto can't deny we're his parents. He exclaimed, grabbing the papers with a big smile. He was about to leap around the room when he asked himself, why was Naruto's birth certificate hidden in the desk? Unless, he said, glancing at Naruto's birth certificate before putting it aside. Sarutobi, you traitor. Kushina picked it up right away as Minato looked at the first document, his blood boiling as he read it. As he stormed out the office door, he slammed the papers on the desk. Kushina followed, wondering what was going on, but she was too busy following Minato to notice the birth certificate fall beneath the heater. Alongside Naruto, Yuki was being carried by Naruto in a firefighter's manner toward a docked boat. He had to handle Sandayu's accusation that he was too cruel to the princess. He had silenced the elderly man with a well-timed dose of murderous intent. He walked up the ramp before making his way to the sleeping area for her, complaining to himself, maybe I should not have knocked her out for so long, it would make moving her around a hell of a lot easier. He used his foot to open the door, and the layout really caught his attention. The sheets appeared to be made of the finest fabric, the bed appeared to be made of an exotic material, and the furniture around it appeared to have been imported from other nations, most likely from across the ocean. He went to the bed, placed Yuki on it, and then covered her with the beautiful satin sheets. He gave her a brief glance before noticing her necklace. Upon closer inspection, he saw that it contained an active chakra and was engraved with dozens of kanji. He turned and walked out the door, shrugging his shoulders. Returning to Konoha after 20 minutes reading his old war journal, which contained a thorough account of every conflict he had participated in up until the Kyuubi attack, Hiruzen Sarutobi was now adding the Suna invasion of Konoha to the journal's archives. He had completed the final entry when the same sensation that had been plaguing him for the previous month returned. After Orochimaru struck him in the back of the head, he rubbed the bruise. His memory hasn't been the best, but that problem will be resolved soon, provided his plans don't fall through. If only he could recall where he put them. He put down his journal and went to the kitchen. Crash, as a dozen Anbu jumped into his house, shattering the windows. It was too late for Sarutobi to notice 3 of the Anbu performing hand seals because he was so shocked. He realized he was immobile just as he was reaching for the kunai he always carried with him. What happened? Damn it. He noticed that Anbu Shika, Nezumi, and Kumori were holding a rat sign for the Kage Main no Jutsu when he peered out his peripheral vision and noticed 3 shadows stretching towards him. Minato walked forward as the rest of the Anbu prepared to fight, while others withdrew chakra restraining cuffs. He hissed at the thought of being so easily captured, and the front doors slammed open to reveal an enraged Minato and Kushina. Hiruzen Sarutobi, I, as the Yondaime Hokage of Konohagakure no Sato, hereby arrest you, for treason, Minato snarled as he stood in front of Sarutobi. He flicked his hand as the Anbu cuffed Sarutobi and drove him to the last place a traitor would want to be in chains. The interrogation department at Anbu headquarters. A set of chakra enhanced chains held Sarutobi in place, and even if Tsunade used her superpowers, they probably wouldn't break. His chest was covered in seals that suppressed chakras. He was surrounded by Museoru, Silent Knight, a special Anbu Black Operations Division. They were the most dangerous members of the Black Ops, and they had no loyalty to anyone but the Hokage. They didn't even consider Kakashi worthy of joining their ranks. He was in a holding cell constructed from a unique rock that drains chakra. There was a set of bars and wires that strengthened the wall of chakra. Eating rock, which was only 3 inches thick. Then came a concrete wall that was 12 inches thick. The door in and out was the only weakness in the cell's perfect hold, but it was made of steel that could withstand 100 of Tsunade's strongest blows, and it was continuously pumped with Kaden chakra, making it impossible to open from the inside. All in all, the cell was almost perfect. Only one person managed to get out of this cell, and he passed away as soon as he was 3 feet away. Sarutobi's thighs, wrists, and ankles were being bound. He had a special device on his back that, if instructed by the interrogator, would rapidly pump chakra into his chakra system while holding his head in place. Now, why would this be bad? Well, The process of transferring someone else's chakra into another is extremely painful for the recipient, especially if that chakra originated from somewhere else. The chakra was specifically harvested by Oinin, Hunter.nin, who would bring it in for the device using special chakra holding cases. Overall, it would hurt a lot because the chakra was being forced into a person from multiple people. Sarutobi stared at the ground, reflecting on what had transpired. He had been writing his memoirs at home just 20 minutes prior, and the next minute he had been arrested for treason. What proof did Minato have for this? It's unlikely that Minato would have checked storage when he had his own desk. The cell door opened before Sarutobi could finish thinking, and he was startled and afraid by the person who entered. The finest torture expert of her generation, Anko Midarashi, was aware of all the body's pressure points and the connections between each nerve. Inoichi Yamanaka was a well-known interrogator in the elemental nations. Ibiki Morino, the only interrogator who has ever had the pleasure of making a cage squeal for their life, is the worst of them all. The three interrogators were followed by a furious Kushina and a very irate Minato. The Anbu bowed and swiftly locked down the doors after Minato turned to face them. "Lock it down. No one goes in or out of this room without my say-so. Kill anyone that attempts to interrupt us." "I was willing to pass by not telling Naruto about us. I really was, but not this," Minato said, glaring at the Sandaime. He produced a stack of documents and said, "What I have found here is treason. No, beyond treason, this is genocide." Minato approached Sarutobi and said, "Shall we see what you have done?" "Oh, I think we shall." He got back up and turned to the first page, saying, "Let's start with this," and putting a document right in front of the Sandaime's face, shocking Sarutobi to his very core. All of the orphanages were required to treat Naruto in a way that would make him obedient. When Naruto was a shinobi in the future, Sarutobi had hoped that he would be totally obedient to those in authority. This would also stop Naruto from retaliating when he was beaten or mistreated. It was the sole reason Sakura had been able to defeat Naruto every day without being completely destroyed by beatings. "Minato, you must understand, if Naruto grew resentful of this village he would have lashed out, possibly destroying us with Kyuubi's power. I could not allow that," Sarutobi said, looking at Minato with beseeching eyes. Minato grabbed Sarutobi by the throat. He released Sarutobi's stranglehold and produced another document, saying, "And you would allow my son to be abused and tortured like a common criminal. Oh, I am sure the Hyuga clan would love to see this document, Hiruzen Sarutobi." Minato flung the document to the ground in front of Hiruzen. It was the actual treaty that he and the Raikage had signed. The one that was shown to Konoha was little more than a deceptive wording that persuaded the council that the real treaty was basically treachery. According to the treaty, the terms of Kumo's demand for an immediate truce between our two countries are accepted by me, Hiruzen Sarutobi, Sandaime Hokage of Konohagakure no Sato. In exchange for the prompt removal of all outposts and the immediate withdrawal of all Kumogakure troops from Hai no Kuni. The following terms are accepted by me, Hiruzen Sarutobi. In addition to any Raiden Jutsu ranked B or higher, including those from the Forbidden Scroll of Sealing, Kumogakure will receive 30% of our treasury. This includes the Raiden Jutsu collection owned by the Hitaki family. We don't have to be concerned about Kakashi Hitaki investigating their absence because he is unaware of them. All prisoners of war will be released by Konohagakure, and those who have committed crimes against Konohagakure no Sato will be forgiven. Any missing nin from Kumogakure will also be turned over by Konoha, regardless of any services they may have rendered to Konoha. Lastly, Konohagakure will turn over one Byakugan main branch user. Konoha will guarantee that Kumo can apprehend a Byakugan user without interference from Anbu. Your ambassador will find and capture a main branch Hyuga while all Anbu will be occupied protecting the Kumo entourage. A member of the Elder Council who passed away 3 days after the incident with Kumo gave him the remaining document, which contained information about the Hyuga compound and the locations of Hyuga patrols. Sarutobi said, "Kumo outnumbered us 3-1. If I did not agree to their demands they would have invaded us and destroyed us all. Giving them the Byakugan quelled most of their hostilities." Minato gave Sarutobi a backhand. Minato took out a number of documents and glared at the Sandaime, saying, "You nearly caused a 4th grade shinobi war, you dropped our economy, you gave away jutsu that were not yours to give, and you would have condemned Hinata Hyuga to a life as a baby factory." He slammed the document into the ground in front of Sarutobi, stating, "This one is absolutely appalling. It contained the assassination order of every last Uchiha, leaving only Sasuke Uchiha alive. You committed a genocide of the Uchiha clan, ordering our top Anbu to slaughter them, including the women and children, and you only allowed him to keep Itachi alive, and by the looks of it, you needed to place a suggestive genjutsu on him, because he refused to kill infants." Hiruzen was about to rebel, and Minato caught him by the scruff of his neck. "And where was your evidence?" Some side chats by mentally ill Uchiha who had been so psychologically damaged by wartime combat that they went insane. "That evidence?" As he threw Sarutobi to the ground, he said, "You know as well as I do that some shinobi never recover from missions. Most Uchiha never do, and end up speaking nonsense about this and that." Minato perused the documents, stopping at the most recent one, his eyes widening violently. "You are a worthless piece of garbage. This is all the evidence I need, Sarutobi. You will be lucky to live." Minato kicked Sarutobi in the face. "Find what you can from him. But keep him alive long enough so I can watch the life drain from his eyes." Minato went to the door, and when it opened, he left, followed by his wife. Shintenshin no Jutsu. Inoichi glared at the Sandaime while performing hand seals. Sarutobi's eyes widened as Inoichi literally tore through his mental defenses with his mind transfer jutsu and started to walk through his mind. Sarutobi's delusions. Inoichi appeared abruptly in front of a hallway. The interior of Sarutobi's mind resembled the interior of the Hokage Tower. Inoichi stood and looked around, discovering that there were multiple hallways, with memories at the front of one. He walked down that hallway and took in its layout, noting the names on each door. Konohamaru, Kakashi, Asuma, Kaharu, Homura, and Danzo. Inoichi opened the Danzo labeled door after glancing at it. Recollection. Inoichi opened his eyes and looked around. He was in the office of the Hokage. He glanced around and noticed Sarutobi working on some paperwork. He was going to take a closer look when someone knocked on the door. After saying, "Enter," and looking up, Sarutobi saw Danzo enter through the open door. "What do you have to report, Danzo?" he asked, smiling, as he approached the Sandaime. Danzo sat down in the chair in front of the desk and spoke. "I am pleased to say that Root is doing well. My lowest-ranking soldiers are now on par with a low Chunin, and my highest-ranking soldiers could rival Anbu Black Ops. Not bad for a bunch of 12-year-olds. Inoichi's eyes grew wide with rage. The Sandaime had secretly carried on with Root operations after the Yondaime had ordered their permanent disbandment, particularly in light of the experiments they had been conducting on orphans. "I expect a report in a week." Sarutobi nodded his head and said, "Good. They will prove useful in the future. We might just be able to expand our ideals to other nations soon. Then we can put an end to war, and then we can truly have peace. No friction between ideals means no conflict, no pain, no war." Sarutobi returned to his documents. Final memory. Inoichi screamed, "Ah, you son of a bitch," and punched the walls in an attempt to traumatize the elderly man as he stormed out the door that held the conversation Sarutobi had with Danzo. In an attempt to relax, he started to breathe in and out. "Okay, getting worked up is not going to help me out here. Okay, so who's next?" he said. He kept moving through the corridors, finding doors for each shinobi he had ever interacted with, and then he came to a stop in front of a partially cracked door. But why? He examined it more closely in an attempt to identify its name, and his eyes widened when he recognized the door, Orochimaru. Alongside Naruto on the bow of the ship they were on, Naruto was dozing off. Kurenai Sensei stated that they would arrive in Yuki no Kuni in a few days. He had learned a valuable lesson during that time. He despises boats. He spent the entire trip vomiting, and to make matters worse, he was responsible for ensuring Yuki didn't get off the ship on one of the life rafts. All in all, he regretted embarking on this mission, and they had been off the boat for over an hour. After letting out a sigh, Naruto's eyes widened as he heard his stomach churn. "Oh shish. Not again." He hurried to the bow, exclaiming, "Hurrah," and releasing the crimson tuna from this morning. "Damn high-class fish, why can't they have something that I will be able to stomach?" he said as he collapsed to the ground, clutching his stomach. Gazing at the diminishing expanse of land behind them, he forced himself off the ground and made his way to the ship's mast. He made his way to the ship's brig door and descended to the brig, passing rows and rows of wooden planks, with the occasional lantern hook, but Naruto had spent enough time in the dark as a child to understand that a ship's darkness was merely a new setting with familiar surroundings. In search of something that wasn't fancy food, he entered the holding bay and wandered around. For some reason, he couldn't stand eating like that, so he found some materials to make something simple instead of gourmet food that tasted like it was prepared for kings. He picked up some bread slices, cheese, bits of meat, and a small amount of sauce. He had just started to eat his sandwich when a crate toppled over. He turned to see which crate had fallen. Someone else was inside because it was stacked close to the back edge of the crate underneath it and the waves were not powerful enough to topple it. After drawing a pair of kunai, Naruto started to investigate. If it was a bandit, there would be no issue, but if it was a shinobi, things might get ugly. When Naruto examined the area where the crate had fallen, he discovered a faint footprint, indicating that whoever was inside was either not attempting to conceal their presence or was too inept to do so in the first place. As long as there were traces of footsteps, Naruto was the best at tracking. Most people were unaware of this, but he followed them in an attempt to find a pattern. When he saw the feet stop in front of a wall, he halted. Well, either the person managed to escape somehow, or Naruto put his hands in a release seal. Kai. A surge of chakra erupted from his body, and the wall in front of him became one of the last people he wanted to see. "Oh, hey Naruto," he said, turning around and grinning from eye to eye. "Inoichi is back." Nobody knew how Orochimaru got away, so this was their only lead at the moment. Inoichi swallowed hard. Based on the way the door was, the memory must not have been the best, but it would be more than enough to determine what the most recent memory of Orochimaru was there. With deliberate slowness, Inoichi reached for the door handle and opened it to the unknown. Recollection: when Inoichi opened his eyes, he saw Sarutobi and Orochimaru crossing weapons. After a brief battle, Sarutobi pushed Orochimaru away and used a series of hand seals. "This is the end, Orochimaru. By the end of this day, you will never be able to use your jutsu again," he exclaimed as he rushed forward, his hands igniting with fire. "Kaden. Nenshu Suhu," he yelled, grabbing Orochimaru's forearms. Orochimaru screamed in agony as his arms burned, still bound to his body. Sarutobi released his arms as they started to turn to ashes, summoned Enma, and withdrew a kunai, saying, "You will not escape this day, Orochimaru." Sarutobi ran toward Orochimaru, aiming for his heart, but he stopped when Orochimaru said those words. "And lose the chance to bring your beloved back to life?" Hiruzen's eyes grew wide. What was he discussing? Inoichi was astonished and fervently hoped that Sarutobi's actions were not real. "Oh yes, Sarutobi. Sensei, I can only use my perfect rebirth technique once every 5 months, but because I cannot speak to the Shinigami at the moment, and my next opening is in 6 months, it will be that much more difficult, but if you let me live, I can guarantee that in 6 months, you can have your beloved wife." Orochimaru sealed the deal after Sarutobi lowered his kunai and started to think. Sarutobi looked down and said, "And of course, she will have all her free will, especially since it was you she cherished most." He had fallen into a deep depression after his wife died, and he would sell his soul to the devil to bring her back, but he had been given another chance, so he let Orochimaru live, and he got his wife back. He considered all the suffering Orochimaru had caused, all the hell he had brought forth, but his selfish desire to be with his wife was too great. After saying, "I'm sorry," and applying the unique cage seal to their arms, Sarutobi turned to face the 3 Anbu outside the barrier. They passed out, and the previous 30 minutes were permanently erased from their memories as a precaution against information leakage in the event that they were ever apprehended. As his bodyguards surrounded him, Sarutobi turned to Orochimaru and said, "Okay, you might live, but please, bring me back my wife." Orochimaru received a sly grin. The group vanished in a shunshin after one of them struck Sarutobi in the back of the head, essentially knocking him unconscious. "I promise, Sarutobi-sensei." Final memory: Inoichi was absolutely shocked to learn that Hiruzen Sarutobi had let Orochimaru escape in order to revive his wife. Inoichi turned to leave without bothering to look at the other doors because he had sufficient proof to hold Sarutobi accountable for a practice that had not been used in Konoha since the Nidaime era. Demise. By coerced seppuku returning with Naruto. "What are you doing here, Kakashi Hitaki?" snarled Naruto as he turned to face the man. "Well, I thought perhaps I could, maybe, teach you a few things," Kakashi said, turning to face Naruto. Naruto growled at Kakashi, releasing just enough of his deadly intent to cause Kakashi to flinch. Kakashi recoiled at the icy tone Naruto was using to address him. "You had your chance to teach me, the entire time that you were my sensei. You got what you wanted. You can now train the Uchiha exclusively, so what reason would you have to train the no-talent Kyuubi brat?" Without giving Kakashi a chance to blink, Naruto grabbed him by the collar and slammed him against the wall behind him. "Why other than to train my sensei's son?" he said. Naruto's strength and the speed at which he launched his attack astounded Kakashi. Kakashi attempted to object, saying, "I am tired of this bullshit. If the Yondaime sent you here to trick me so he can have you kill me without me expecting you, then forget it. Now, I will repeat myself for the last time, and listen very, very closely." Naruto released Kakashi and made his way back to the staircase to the upper deck. He grabbed his sandwich before he headed up the stairs, and Kakashi slumped to the floor, clutching the scroll he was about to give Naruto. Returning to Konoha after leaving Ibiki, Inoichi, and Enko in his office to obtain any information he required from the elderly man, Minato burst open the door and grinned to himself because he now had indisputable evidence that Naruto was his son. However, when he reached to take it from the desk, he discovered it was missing. When Kushina entered the room, Minato was flinging papers all over the place. He was looking panicked as he shuffled through the papers. "Honey, what is wrong?" Minato asked Kushina, his eyes welling with tears. Kushina said, "The birth certificate, it's gone," and started searching through the documents as well. She was going to look through a folder when she noticed a piece of paper beneath the heater. Her eyes widened in fear, and she rushed to it. Minato did the same, and they swiftly removed it. It was Naruto's birth certificate, okay? It was impossible to read the names on the birth certificate. The wax ink used to write the forms had melted and smudged. The blood used as indicators was blackened. It was impossible to trace, and the DNA was likely destroyed. The two collapsed to the ground, destroying the only item that would have allowed them to reunite as a family and the only proof that Naruto was their son. While Kushina was whimpering like a dog and muttering things like, "It's all my fault," Minato collapsed to the ground and started crying. Minato's eyes snapped open as he released his grip. He recalled that he had ensured that 2 copies of all his documents, including his marriage and birth certificates as well as the academy curriculum files, were present, and that he had given the copy of Naruto's birth certificate to one of his closest friends, Heishi Hyuga. "Kushina, I just remembered, Heishi has the extra copy of the birth certificate, come one," he said to his wife after slapping himself, wondering why he had forgotten it earlier. Kushina wasted no time in jumping out of the window instead of taking the door, with Minato following closely behind. In the meantime, during questioning now that Ibiki was questioning Sarutobi, his hatred for the Sandame only deepened with each confession he made. He turned to face the Sandame and muttered to himself, "May Kami show you the mercy our Hokage will not. Bastard." As Naruto and Kakashi entered their quarters, Kurenai massaged her temples and explained that he had gone down to get a sandwich and discovered Kakashi on the ship. "Is that all, Naruto?" she asked herself as she gazed at her emotionally troubled pupil. Kurenai wanted to lose her mind at Naruto's impolite tone, but she composed herself. After all, if she had been in his shoes, she would have vanished by now. "Yes, that is all. Can I go now?" Naruto asked. After exiting the cabin and shutting the door, Naruto started searching for a location to empty his stomach of his lunch. "What are you doing here, Kakashi? You have caused enough problems for Naruto as it is, and I don't feel like dealing with you trying to stunt it any further." Kakashi winced at the Ice Queen's harsh tone, but he spoke up in the most pathetic tone he has ever used. Kurenai turned to Kakashi, who was furiously angry with him. Kurenai silenced Kakashi by releasing some ki. I just wanted to train him, be a proper sensei, I mean." Kurenai pushed him aside, but Kakashi stopped her, tears welling up in his eyes. "You had 6 months, Kakashi. You had 6 months to be a proper sensei. You had 6 months to follow your sensei's last wish. You had 6 months to fulfill the duty you swore on the moment you took the Jonin rank. Naruto is my student. He is my responsibility. I will not let you destroy everything he has worked so hard for." Kurenai slowly turned to Kakashi, narrowing her eyes, saying, "I know I made a huge mistake. Hell, that would be an understatement. But let's face it, your training methods are not the best source for Naruto's skills. He is a ninjutsu specialist, and you and I both know that. I may not know the skills that are best for his field, but I am a much better teacher than you will ever be. I mean, just look at you," she said with the most disdainful expression he had ever witnessed. "You abandoned your precious Uchiha to come gallivant all the way out here to Yuki no Kuni so you could teach your sensei's son. Leaving your apprentice to train himself, and correct me if I am wrong, but it was the Yondaimi's orders that you stay away from him, and train your student, and if I remember what the penalties were, the moment you step through Konoha's gates, your Sharingan will be torn from its socket, your chakra will be sealed, and you will be locked up in a cage for the rest of your life, with nothing but a bucket to shit in." Glaring at him, essentially, "You have just ended your shinobi career, for a genin that will never want you." She walked toward the main part of the vessel. Kakashi, meanwhile, collapsed to the ground in tears. Kurenai was correct. He was responsible for every single thing that happened. Additionally, he recently ended his shinobi career because he was too damn persistent. "If my shinobi career is going to end, then at the very least I am going to teach Naruto something," Kakashi said with a determined expression in his eyes. However, he slumped back down, realizing that the only way he could teach Naruto anything would be if he could somehow trick him into doing it. Additionally, over the past month, Naruto has grown much more conscious. Kakashi considered all of the jutsus he was familiar with, but he couldn't teach Naruto any of them without making it clear. With a smirk on his lips, Kakashi's eyes widened as he realized that he had one jutsu in his arsenal that he could teach Naruto without Naruto realizing it. It was his sensei's most valuable jutsu, and it was also Naruto's birthright. The Rasengan back at Hyuga compound in Konoha. To get to the Hyuga compound, Minato and Kushina had essentially teleported. They sprinted to the clan's main office and slammed it open, only to discover Heishi using an ice bag to massage his head. It seems that they were searching for the same file. Heishi cringed at Minato's yell, but it was not surprising given that Minato had found the last chance he had to convince his son that he was his real father. Minato was happy that his old friend had saved the document, but he was not so happy with the progress. "What do you mean you can't find the document?" Heishi said. "I am sorry, Minato, but when we were told Naruto was dead by Hiruzen, we forgot about the document as it was too painful of a reminder of you. We had already coated it in a special chakra seal so as to prevent the document from ever being destroyed in simple fires. So we could not destroy it, especially since the one who placed the veil on it was killed when the nine-tailed fox attacked us." Ishii paled instantly when Kushina said, "Heishi, I am going to be very frank with you. How is it that the clan with 360 feet of vision, and can see through walls, can't find one single piece of paper?" Kushina took hold of Hiishi's shirt and began shaking him like a rag doll. Then, between each shake, Heishi started to say, "I have been trying to locate it for the last month. Will you please stop it?" Kushina stopped using Heishi as a rag doll, brushed himself off, and sighed while scratching the back of his neck. "As I mentioned, we have searched every square inch of the compound for the past month. We have used our Byakugan to locate the document." With a contemplative look on her face, Kushina asked, "Have you checked this office?" Heishi slapped himself in the face and said, "I am an idiot, a big fat white-eyed idiot." He checked his office and discovered 3 hidden compartments layered with chakra, restrictive metal. "I forgot about those," he said, turning off his Byakugan and turning to face Kushina and Minato. "I found 3 safes, if I remember. All 3 have the same combination, 12.27.13. Kushina, there is one under my desk. Minato, the other is by my bookshelf. I will look in the one behind my wife's photo." The 3 of them got up and went to their respective safes. Minato retrieved the safe and started to unfasten the locks after spotting the one next to the bookshelf with a strategically placed punch in the wall. After entering the code, he unlocked the safe. When he opened it, he discovered an extremely old scroll with dozens and dozens of intricate seals layered on top of it. Heishi proceeded to his wife's portrait and carefully removed it before tearing down the wall to retrieve the safe. He took it out and started to open it. With the most shocked look on her face, Kushina had just opened the safe beneath Hiishi's desk. Although the documents in the safe were not the birth certificates, Heishi discovered that they were nearly identical. It seems that his wife had kept the birth certificates in a secure location. It would take a long time to locate the documents based on the paper's riddle. "I have a few things to say to anyone who might read this. When I discovered that Naruto was indeed alive, I was strolling through the Hokage Tower. I wanted to tell you, but I became ill shortly after, and you were all away at a crucial meeting, so I decided to stay behind. I've kept it a secret out of concern for the Sandame's actions. I concealed the birth certificates in locations that the Sandame would never discover before you all returned home. The location that is closest to home but furthest from the heart is where the first document is concealed." Heishi sighed. He could always solve riddles, and his wife always enjoyed them. Heishi clasped his head and said, "Og, damn it, what was the place Hikari always considered home?" He sat back and thought, "Okay, so it is the place closest to home, but farthest from the heart. Hikari always had another meaning in important parts of the riddles she did. Okay, so home, she might have considered the garden her home, but, had Kushina not been standing in front of him with a huge flush on her face, Heishi would have carried on with his thoughts." When Kushina gave Heishi the things she had discovered in the safe, Hiishi's eyes widened in horror. "Kushina, what is it?" They were photos from his honeymoon with Hikari. To mark the occasion, she had insisted on setting up cameras throughout the room. The pictures that resulted showed him and Hikari in almost every sexual position imaginable. The sight of his former teammate blushing more than his daughter ever could made Minato laugh. "Damn Heishi, who knew you could be such a beast?" he exclaimed, gesturing to the photo of Heishi and Hikari in a "Alright, enough, damn it, now, let's see if we can figure out this damn riddle, and put my honeymoon photos away." With a smile, Kushina stored the pictures, but she sealed a few copies on her wrist with an invisible seal to prevent future blackmail. The trio took a seat and started reading the puzzle, attempting to decipher its meaning. When Kushina realized what was happening, Minato and Heishi nodded their heads. "Home, what about the branch house building? From what I remember, she always spent a lot of time there. Seems like a logical place to start, but what is the place farthest from the heart?" After considering this for a while, Heishi moaned, "Oh please, not her." Kushina and Minato couldn't figure out who her was. But Heishi was complaining that he would need to enlist Hikari's twin sister's help. Naruto, Kami. Sama, damn it, this is going to be a long ride, Naruto said as he landed back on the ship after being thrown over the side and not enjoying even the briefest moment there. Should I tell him now? There are no girls around for him to reject before I confess. So I can't lose my confidence. But what if he still rejects me? What if he doesn't care for me? Hinata thought as she watched Naruto. As the possibility of rejection set in, Hinata gripped her chest and said, "No, I can't tell him, not right now." She then left and sat close to the rails. Time. Skip. After 3 days, Naruto was clenching his teeth in frustration. Their client must be the most pampered, conceited bitch on the planet because she had refused daimyo appropriate food in the past 10 minutes. "Please Yuki, if you don't eat, you will get sick, and we can't afford to have you weary on this trip," her manager attempted to beg her. "For the last time, I refuse to eat this slop and garbage. This stuff isn't fit for dogs," Yuki said, glaring at Sandayu. Looking at her, Naruto said, "Oh, for the love of shit, will you just eat? There are hundreds of thousands of people in the world that would give away their right arm for a decent meal. And if this stuff isn't fit for a dog, then I must be far below a dog, because I would eat shit out of garbage cans if I couldn't afford ramen for the first 8 years of my life." Naruto got up and stormed out of the mess hall, not wanting to deal with the pampered actress. "What is he talking about?" Yuki asked Naruto. She rose and prepared to follow him. She turned to see Hinata get up and say, "I'll go check up on him." Yuki turned to face Kurenai as Hinata left the room. Kurenai sighed and rubbed her temples, asking, "What is his problem?" "To be honest, these days I'm wondering what isn't his problem." She left the room with her dango in hand. Yakumo sighed. She had hoped that Naruto would lighten up eventually, but it didn't seem like that would happen. On deck, although it required him to throw up his breakfast, lunch, dinner, and pretty much every last snack that got into his stomach, Naruto had finally recovered from his cursed seasickness and was gazing out over the ocean. Naruto dug into his pocket and took out a scroll. He had been trying to learn this technique for weeks, and he knew, at least in his perverted perspective, that no one would accept or even teach him anything if he didn't have noble blood, so he was on his own there. "Is there anything I can do to help you?" Naruto asked, raising an eyebrow before he let out a sigh. "Anyo." Naruto turned to see Hinata standing beside the railing. He started to roll up the scroll, but Hinata stopped him, saying, "Hinata, there is nothing you can do to help me." Naruto.kun. I saw you reading the scroll. I may have only been partially taught in the Hyuga arts, but I know that the scroll you were holding was very similar to Juken in fighting, so, I thought, maybe, Naruto intervened. "Hinata, don't waste your time. You have so much promise as a kunoichi, and you would be wasting your time using your talent to help a bastard orphan like me." Naruto turned to Hinata, who was trembling but maintaining her position, and said, "No, I wouldn't, Naruto.kun. I would not be helping a bastard orphan." Naruto became enraged and was on the verge of yelling at Hinata for bringing up the Yondaime's charade. "I would be helping my friend and the person I admire," he said. "Hinata, if this is some trick you thought up," Naruto narrowed his eyes and gazed hard into Hinata's eyes, as he had done with all the girls who had said similar things. With tears in her eyes, Hinata swallowed the lump in her throat and said, "Why? You were my inspiration. You gave me the courage to stand up for myself. You gave me the courage to do what others said I could not. You were the one to give me confidence, when I was only filled with doubt." Hinata closed her eyes and waited for the taunts, the yelling, the hate, but she did not anticipate the hand on her shoulder. She opened her eyes and saw Naruto's sweet smile. "Hinata, I believe you," Naruto said, giving her a kind embrace that caused the Hyuga heiress to blush profusely. "Naruto.kun is giving me a hug." As he unfolded the scroll, Naruto grinned and said, "Hinata, unlike all those other girls, you had no hint of deception in your eyes. I am grateful that at least one person does not fall for the Yondaime's charade." Naruto.kun. "The Yondaime is your father," Hinata sighed to herself, "but, if it keeps you happy, I will ignore that fact." She sat next to Naruto and started teaching him using a scroll of one of the oldest forms of taijutsu, although she was cringing inside. Chakra Kuchiku, or the destruction of chakras after 2 days. While standing at the ship's kitchen counter, Naruto was attempting to properly stir the ingredients in the bowl. He was getting frustrated because he was unable to properly stir the ingredients for some reason. He turned around as he was ready to toss the bowl out the ship's window and said, "Hey Naruto," but Hinata was standing in front of him. "Anyo, how about I show you a way to properly stir the ingredients with your chakra?" she said, standing in front of the counter, focusing her chakra in her hand. causing it to swirl as her eyes focused on it. After following the directions, Naruto was eventually able to accomplish the same feat. With a smile on her face, Hinata put her palm toward the ingredients and started spinning it with her chakra. The ingredients were perfectly stirring themselves as Naruto followed the directions. Turning to face his friend, Naruto grinned and said, "Thanks Hinata. Chan, you are the greatest." Hinata blushed and grinned before leaving the kitchen. Hinata went to her cabin while Naruto kept combining the ingredients. After entering, she sealed her hands and said, "Kai." A puff of smoke later, and Kakashi Hitaki took Hinata's place. With a sigh, Kakashi made his way to his bunk at the end of the hall. "I apologize for misleading you, Naruto, but you would never accept my assistance, and I have no intention of letting this plan go to waste," he said as he descended the hall, unaware of what he had just caused. After 2 days, the stirring technique that Hinata taught Naruto was being practiced while he sat on top of the deck. He kept practicing the technique, thinking to himself, with enough power and control, this could turn into quite an awesome jutsu. I want to ask Hinata for help, but maybe I should surprise her first. Crash. But he felt the ship slam into something and fell over. He was shocked when he peered over the edge and saw that they had somehow struck an iceberg. However, how in the world did they do that when they should have been able to see it coming for miles? Especially since it was large enough to contain a secret village and a few acres of land. The director thought it would be the ideal location for the next scene in the Princess Gale series, so they all unloaded from the ship. They had no idea how far the damn iceberg would drift, so staying here would be a very bad idea. Naruto was moaning in frustration. Naruto was about to express his worries. "Well, hello there." Naruto turned his head and noticed 3 Yuki shinobi dressed in an odd kind of armor. There was a large, bulky man with black hair, a woman with short pink hair, and a slender man with slightly longer, light bluish hair. As he laughed, the man with the bluish hair said, My, so, you have returned, Kakashi Hitaki." Glancing at the man, Kakashi growled, "Nadare Roga." He drew a kunai and charged at the Yuki ninja. Naruto swiftly executed Kage Bunshin and launched an attack as the other 2 charged at the group. When Yakumo lost sight of her opponents due to a snowstorm, she started using Genjutsu. Kurenai was experiencing the same issue. Using her innate flexibility, Hinata charged through the snow and yelled, "Shugohaki Rokuhuyan Sho." She fired a good number of needles at the woman with the pink hair, but was startled when they were deflected. With a psychotic grin, the woman said, "Ooh, is the big bad Hyuga shocked her attack didn't work? Well, get used to it, because none of them are getting through." As she waited for the blow, Hinata closed her eyes. "Go away. The Rasengan?" She whispered to herself as she opened her eyes to see Naruto standing in front of her, holding a sphere of chakra. Her eyes widened, realizing that she was familiar with the technique, having studied it for guidance on her Juken. Yakumo and Kurenai noticed the whirling chakra. How? Kakashi grinned and said, "He's almost done." "Eat this," Naruto said, tossing the woman the whirling ball of chakra. He struck her stomach with it. After being flung back and coughing up some blood, she looked down at the spot where he had struck and gasped, How? He broke through the chakra armor. Impossible. After observing the method, Nadare smirked and said, "So, it is true." He then executed a one-handed seal and vanished in a whirlpool of ice and snow. Just as Naruto was about to charge and attack the girl with the pink hair once more, Nadare grabbed his arm and threw him back at the group, causing him to crash into a small pillar of ice. "So, the son of the Yondaime graces us," smirked Nadare. Naruto glared at the man and launched another swirling strike, this time utilizing his father's coveted jutsu as well. Nadare laughed and gestured to the unfinished Rasengan as Naruto halted in mid-step, glaring at him. "What the hell are you talking about?" He leapt backwards and said, "What you are holding in your hands is the Rasengan. A purely chakra-based close-range strike, strong enough to break through any armor. Even our chakra armor is incapable of blocking it. But, by the looks of it, your Rasengan is incomplete, so, it's all the better." Nadare raised his arm and unleashed 3 ice kunai that ripped through the air. With pain visible in his eyes, Naruto stepped aside and snapped his head in Hinata's direction, asking, "Hinata, why did you lie to me? Why is he looking at me like that?" Hinata asked, observing the expression. When the two had to abruptly dodge 2 black dragons, they were unable to think further. They noticed a man with daimyo-like effects when they looked up. Yuki looked at the man and started to shiver. Looking at her, the man grinned and said, "Koyuki Kazuhana, you look so beautiful." Koyuki turned and ran in the direction of the ship, but the man in front of her grabbed her by the throat and said, "Oh my, still a runner, no different than your father. His head turns and he says, "Hey asshole." Yakumo clenches his fist and says, "Take this," before punching him in the nose. Kurenai grabs Yuki after he releases him and dashes back toward the ship. Kakashi turns back and yells, "Hayatan! Akaku Hokage," as the rest of the group swiftly follows. The ice crackles around them as a huge white leviathan rips through it, creating a screen that allows the ship to escape. The man, Dodo Kazuhana, snarls angrily, "Damn, I almost had it." He watches them go, knowing where they're going next. Kuni no Yuki returning to the ship. Hinata is pursuing Naruto to check on him. Naruto.kun, what happened? Are you okay? He slapped her shoulder away when she reached out to grab it, and he gave her a hurt look. It's unbelievable that you had to deceive me into learning the Yondaime's technique, Hinata, and that you lied to me. Hinata was very perplexed. What are you talking about, Naruto.kun? Naruto snaps at her, shedding a few tears in the process. You came into the kitchen 2 days ago and taught me this alleged method for stirring food. I trusted you, so I didn't question it. You betrayed my confidence. How could you? Hinata was too shocked to move as Naruto rushed past her and slammed the door behind him. No, I didn't do it. Why don't you believe me? She burst into tears before anyone could intervene. Kurenai took Hinata in her arms and said, "What happened, Hinata?" As she spoke, Hinata broke down in tears. Naruto.kun said, "That I taught him the Rasengan, that I abused his trust, but I have never even taught Naruto anything. I only guided him through the scrolls he brought. That's it." Hinata began to weep into Kurenai's. How could Naruto have? Oh no, Kurenai asked, her eyes hardening. That bastard. She released Hinata and made her way to the room of the ship's only other Jonin. Hitaki Kakashi. The Kakashi grinned to himself because he had finally taught Naruto something. Based on what he remembered from Naruto's profile, he will eventually look for ways to strengthen his attack, which may lead to him manipulating nature. Kakashi believed he would be able to elevate Naruto above his father in a few months. Using Hinata's form was perfect, he would never have suspected her. Luckily, Naruto won't get angry at her for this, so it isn't a problem. Now, how am I going to get a slip with the copy of the Hiraishin seal to Naruto? He thought, smiling to himself as he started to consider how he could do this. Kurenai kicked down his door. The Genjutsu mistress grabbed Kakashi by the throat and slammed him against the wall before he could move. You bastard, how could you deceive Naruto like that? Kurenai threw Kakashi against the wall and slammed his head against the bed's headboard. Kurenai grabbed Kakashi's hair and slammed him against the wall, crushing his fingers as he attempted to stand up. Do you have any idea how much you hurt Naruto, how much you hurt Hinata? He screamed. What do you mean? How could Hinata have been hurt? Asked a bewildered Kakashi. Kurenai kicked him in the stomach and slapped him. Kurenai started beating Kakashi as she spoke, saying, You bastard, Naruto trusted Hinata, and you used her own form to betray him. Do you know what has happened? He felt deceived and believed she had abused his trust, and now that you were involved, it's possible that his trust had been permanently destroyed. When we return to Konoha, you will be fortunate to receive a cell rather than the execution bar because you have defied the Hokage's orders and impersonated a fellow shinobi. You have committed 2 sets of treason, which is more than enough for imprisonment and just enough for execution. Kurenai gave him a final kick for good measure before storming out of the cabin. In the meantime, Kakashi sobbed because he had failed once more and this time he had no chance of making amends. How could Hinata do such a thing, especially after I trusted her? Naruto snarled as he sat on his bed, frowning at the sea through his porthole. Can I never have peace? Is my entire life just one big manipulation? Can I never choose my own path? He slung his fist into the headboard. Naruto kept his gaze on the ocean, saying, Naruto. As Kurenai entered, the doors were slammed open. Yes, Kurenai. Sensei, Naruto said, glancing at Kurenai. What is it? Kurenai approached Naruto and took hold of his shoulders. Naruto, it's about Hinata, she didn't. Naruto snarled and pushed Kurenai away from him as he moved in the direction of the door. Kurenai grabbed Naruto's shoulders and made him turn to face her. She is the last person I want to talk about at this moment, and I would greatly appreciate it if you did not mention her, Kurenai said. Naruto, Hinata didn't teach any part of the Rasengan, it was. Naruto pushed Kurenai away from him and reached for the door handle. I told Kurenai that I didn't want to discuss her. Naruto grabbed the door handle and started to turn it, but he felt sleepy all of a sudden, so he let go of it and fell back onto his ass. Kurenai charged chakra into her index finger and poked Naruto's forehead, saying, If you won't believe words, then maybe you will believe your eyes. Naruto opened his eyes to find Kurenai staring at him sternly. Naruto's eyes widened as the events of the previous 30 minutes came back to him. Hinata's tears, Kakashi's deceit. Kurenai took her fingers off Naruto's forehead and turned to face the blonde, who was lying there taking in what he had just witnessed. Kurenai noticed tears welling up in his eyes, and his eyes widened a little. Kami, what have I done? Naruto sprang to his feet and rushed to the door. Where are you going, Naruto? Naruto answered, turning to face Kurenai. As he ran down the hall to Hinata's room, Naruto nearly tore the door off its hinges, saying, to make up for my stupid mistake. Unthinking of anything else, Naruto sprinted down the hallway and skidded to a stop in front of Hinata's doorway. Hinata, are you in there? He pounded his fist against the door. As Naruto waited for a response, Hinata Hyuga's bloodshot eyes were revealed through a small crack in the door. What is it, Anyo? Naruto. K.Kun. Hinata did not anticipate what Naruto did, as he bowed and went to his knees as he started to apologize. She had expected him to reprimand her more, even to scold her. Naruto looked up slightly and said, Hinata, I am so sorry, I shouldn't have jumped to such a conclusion. I mean honestly, how could you possibly know the Yondaime's signature jutsu? Especially when all of his techniques are secret. Please Hinata, I beg you, give me a chance to redeem myself. I will do ANTHING. Naruto bowed lower, almost imploringly. Looking at Naruto, Hinata slid the door open slightly wider and said, anything? Yes, anything at all. Naruto sat up and nodded his head quickly, looking at Hinata and waiting for her to say something. Give me a massage. Gazing at Hinata, Naruto said, huh? Hinata glanced at Naruto and said it again. A massage, I would like a massage. Naruto sighed and chuckled softly to himself before turning to face her, almost sensing her smirk behind the door. Aren't you going to milk this for what it's worth? A slight smirk appeared on Hinata's lips, and her eyes smiled. She said, yes, as a very feline smile appeared on her face. When Hinata opened the door, Naruto got to his feet and his face flushed wildly. Standing in the doorway, Hinata appeared to be wearing nothing but a towel, and her face was flushed as much as her clothes. Anyo. My shoulders are sore from the fight, could you soothe them Naruto-kun? She said, lying on her front with a huge flush on her face as Naruto swallowed as he entered her room and she spread herself out on her bed, spreading the back of the towel just enough to reveal her back. Don't think perverted thoughts, don't think perverted thoughts, don't think perverted thoughts. Naruto exhaled deeply and then walked over to give Hinata a gentle shoulder rub, which caused the young heiress to groan in satisfaction. As she repositioned herself, Hinata moaned, Naruto-kun, that feels so good. Naruto grinned and kept massaging Hinata's back while he was thinking. I'm going to fucking kill you, Kakashi, the following day. With a sigh, Naruto stood on the ship's deck, planning his retaliation against Kakashi after he had finished massaging Hinata the day before. He had no intention of letting the Cyclops go free after this. Naruto snarled as he prepared the first phase of his revenge plan, and he snapped his head toward Kakashi's room as he heard the door crack open and Kakashi leave, reading his orange book. A map of the entire ship, including all the traps he set up for the Jonin, was displayed on the large piece of paper that Naruto took out and examined. As Kakashi turned the corner, straight into his first trap, Naruto smiled. The floor collapsed beneath Kakashi as he dove into the brig, landing in a heap of trash, despite his expectation that it would be hard wood. The Cyclops was about to get up when he heard a hissing sound next to him. He looked down to his right and saw an explosive tag. Oh shit. Boom. He thought as a large chute opened up, sending the garbage and Kakashi flying through it and out of the ship. Kakashi fell toward the water despite his best efforts to keep himself from going overboard. Man, what is going on here? Kakashi grabbed for the ship and managed to grab a ledge before he flew in. He watched as the garbage went down, but fortunately he had pocketed his Ika Ika Paradise novel before they went through the chute. Hey Kakashi. Teme, are you enjoying the scenery? Naruto was standing on the ledge when Kakashi looked up. I hope so, because you aren't getting back up here for at least a day, Kakashi said. Kakashi turned to face Naruto and said, what do you mean? I can just use chakra to walk up. He tried, but his chakra would not move to his feet. That explosive note was more than just an explosive note, it is also a chakra-suppressing gas, Naruto said, laughing at Kakashi's terrified expression. Naruto glanced at a watch on his wrist and said, a day, maybe 2, perhaps 3. When it went off, your chakra system was essentially put on vacation until the effects wear off, which should be in about I'm not entirely sure because I never got around to testing this before or after I became a genin. All I know is that it should be at least 24 hours because it was based on a similar chemical that also lasts a day. Kakashi scowled at Naruto, who laughed and said, "Oh, don't worry, Kakashi." Naruto pulled up a suitcase, specifically Kakashi's suitcase, and said, "I have something I can certainly entertain you with." Naruto opened his suitcase, took out a set of matches and vegetable oil, and said, "No, you wouldn't." Kakashi's eyes widened. "Oh, but I would." Naruto smiled as he held up a piece of the suitcase's contents. The limited edition editor's cut of the first issue of Icha Icha Paradise, signed by the author, was in Naruto's hand. Only 200 copies were made. After covering the book with vegetable oil, which burned slowly, Naruto lit a match underneath it, igniting it. Kakashi cried out, "No," as he observed the excruciatingly slow process of setting his cherished books on fire. Looking at the suitcase, which was stuffed full of the series, Naruto smiled and said, "In about 5 minutes, it will be one down. And only 199 issues to go." "No." "Ah." The mortified screams of an obsessed pervert broke the usual silence of the sea. The Konoha Heishi moaned as he knocked on the door of Hikari Hyuga's twin sister, Hitomi Hyuga. The door slammed open as soon as he knocked, and a stunningly beautiful woman pulled Heishi between an amazing set of breasts. Before she could pull Heishi in, she saw Minato and Kushina standing there, saying, "Minato, Kushina. Oh Heishi-kun, I knew you would come. Now. First we are going to use a few new toys I got." She released Heishi and gave the two a bear hug, saying, "I really missed you too. So, may I inquire why you two are present?" She pried herself free of the woman's hold, gasping for air. "Hello Hitomi, we are here for..." Kushina narrowed her eyes, seeing Hitomi still crushing Minato's head between her breasts while he flailed his arms around as though his life depended on it. "Hitomi, please let go of my husband," she said, a tick mark clearly visible on her head. Hitomi glanced at Kushina, then at Minato, saying, "Oh," and letting him go. Minato got to his feet, gasping for air as though it were his last breath, and said, "Sorry, now." Hitomi leaned into Kushina, asking, "Why are you here?" Hitomi grinned and shook off Minato's statement, "It would be better if we talked inside, if that isn't an issue." "Of course it isn't, please, come in." She took hold of Heishi and pulled him into the living room, then positioned herself directly next to him while Minato and Kushina sat across from them. "Now, may I ask what the problem is?" "Hitomi," Minato sighed, "your sister discovered Naruto was still alive before she passed away. We anticipate that one of the official documents that Heishi had stored for all these years may be here, but she concealed them." Looking at Heishi, Hitomi nodded and took hold of her chin, saying, I might remember something. If only somebody could jog my memory." "Look Hitomi, we need to find those documents, and soon," Heishi said sternly, glaring at his sister.in.law. "We have no time for your strange fetishes." With a sigh, Hitomi stood up and said, all right, hold on." Before she passed away, Hikari brought over a scroll, which she advised not to open until you arrived to retrieve it. Hikari opened a door and started taking items out of it. In the end, Minato, Kushina, and Heishi had to avoid everything from ropes, whips, chains, and... wait, a pack of condoms. They continued to avoid until they said, "Found it." They watched as Hitomi approached them holding a scroll. "I assume this is what you're looking for because she seemed very protective of it." "Yes, thank you very much," Minato said, nodding. He reached for it, but Hitomi pulled it away. She started to hold the scroll like a baby and said, "Oh no, 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 I have held on to this for many years, and I just seem so attached to it. Yes I have, yes I have." Kushina barked, "Come on Hitomi, this is no time for games, we really need that scroll." "Well, I might be willing to give this to you, if..." Hitomi smiled broadly at Heishi after turning to face Kushina. "Oh boy," Minato and Kushina said as they turned to face Heishi and recognized what Hitomi desired. Whoa, whoa, whoa. There is no way in hell I am doing that, I refuse." Heishi cried in panic as he noticed the three of them staring at him. He crossed his arms and gave everyone a stern look. Looking at Heishi, Kushina said, "Yes, you are. And just what are you going to do if I don't?" Heishi asked Kushina as she reached into her pocket and took out multiple photos, which caused Hiashi's eyes to widen. The lecherous copies of Kushina and Hikari's honeymoon were in his hands. "I am going to spread these pictures all over Konoha, is that what you want?" "You wouldn't dare," Heishi said to Kushina, who put her hands in a shunshin and turned to face Heishi. The expression in Kushina's eyes said, "Try me." There was no room for debate. Kushina would definitely do it. Heishi ground out, "Fine, I'll do it, while glaring holes at the ground. Excellent, now Haishi-kun, Hitomi said sultrily into Kushina's ear as she handed him the scroll. I expect you to be here no later than 5:30 tonight. No excuses. Hitomi grinned and started to skip out of the room while humming a song to herself. I can't even begin to tell you how much I hate you at this moment, I really can't, Haishi said, glancing at Minato and Kushina. Shut up, Haishi, you'll enjoy it later. Now, time to see what we have here. Minato opened the scroll and discovered two distinct documents. One contained Naruto's date of birth, along with all of his physical attributes and genetic details. It was one of 4 documents. The other was another letter with a complex riddle of some kind. Haishi complained as he accepted the sheet and glanced at the riddle his wife had placed there. Kushina took the riddle and handed it to him, saying, "Read and translate, now." If you have found this, dear reader, you have solved the first riddle, on to the next one. The second document is concealed from the sinner's view. Okay, this is a tricky one. Haishi glanced at the document. Kushina took the paper and read the puzzle. Haishi grasped his forehead and shook his head, asking, in the sight of the sinner, won't that be somebody who has a criminal track record? No, Hitomi had those people placed in a different category. Her idea of a sinner was completely different. But what was it she defined as a sinner? Ishii breathed a sigh of relief as he... This one is going to take a little longer than the one we just did. Leaving Haishi in the living room, Kushina and Minato sighed, great, well, got up, and turned to leave, saying, we better get going. Maybe we can figure it out while we wait for you. Yes, perhaps you will. Haishi started to close his eyes, but they suddenly opened, and he exclaimed, those bastards left me here. He was on the verge of running to the door to escape. As Hyuga slowly turned around, he thought, oh Haishi-kun. He saw Hitomi standing in front of him, her hair down, wearing only a bathrobe and a pair of underwear. I am glad they left, now we can start early, Hitomi said, taking off the bathrobe while removing a pair of handcuffs. Ah, Naruto is back. As he burned one of Kakashi's favorite books, the incredibly rare manga edition of Icha Icha Paradise, complete with all the illustrations and dialogue converted to manga format, Naruto smiled. Oh come on Naruto, what did I ever do wrong to you? Kakashi sobbed. What did you do? What did you do? Naruto's eyes glowed with pure rage as he leapt off the ledge and landed on Kakashi's fingers, causing the Jonin to scream in agony. You took Hinata's form and made me learn the technique of the Yondaime. You almost destroyed my trust in her. That is what you did wrong, you fucking bastard. Naruto leapt back up and used his chakra to walk up the side of the ship before he covered all the other books with vegetable oil. Say goodbye to your precious collection, he said, setting the books on fire and tossing them overboard, permanently destroying them. No, Kakashi watched as the books vanished into the ocean, utterly destroyed as they floated away, burning as they did so. Remember this Kakashi before you make a stupid mistake like that again. Naruto walked away, leaving the Jonin clinging to the edge. Naruto sneered at Kakashi as he saw the Jonin crying over the loss of his priceless collection, which he had worked on for the previous 15 years. The following day, sitting on the edge of the ship's railing, Naruto gazed at the approaching landmass and said, so, that's Yuki no Kuni? Though very different from Konoha, isn't that why it's called Yuki no Kuni? The only greenery in the vast expanse of snow that covered the entire country was the enormous number of pine trees. Yukie, or Koyuki as she was now called, was searching for any way out while the ship was being unloaded. When she eventually located one, she bounded through the trees. Damn bitch, can't she just stop running? Naruto sighed as he watched her run. Naruto swiftly pursued her after using Shunshin. Koyuki stumbled and fell through the snow just as she was about to slide down a hill, rolling down the slope rather than sliding as she had planned. On her descent, she crashed into a number of trees before landing face first on a layer of ice. She got up and started to run after spitting blood out of her mouth. Are you going somewhere? She asked, turning to face Naruto, who said, come on, I don't feel like hauling you back. And I have every intention of getting paid for this mission. Naruto just caught and snapped it in half when Koyuki snatched a stick and swung it at him. As he tossed the stick aside, Koyuki turned to face Naruto and said, I am a shinobi for a reason, Koyuki. So a stick isn't exactly going to help you on this one. I am never going back, do you hear me? I will not go back, Koyuki retreated, sighing as Naruto withdrew a roll of ninja wire and prepared to bind her. After seeing Dodo Kazahana, Naruto and Koyuki felt a sharp pain at the back of their necks, and all they could see was darkness. None of you are going anywhere. When Naruto finally woke up, his eyes blinked a few times because his vision was still hazy. He was in a dark room with iron bars when his vision finally cleared. Upon turning his head, he discovered that he was in a cell. He tried to move his arms but was unable to do so. When he looked, he saw that his arms were bound and covered in seals that suppressed chakra. Shit, that sucks. He searched the area in the hopes of finding something to break the chains or, at the very least, remove the seals that suppressed his chakra. It's better if you just give up, Naruto said, snapping his head in the direction he heard the voice and seeing Koyuki in a cell across from him. When he eventually located a hairpin that he could use, Naruto snorted. As he was speaking, he got himself up and started to try to pick the lock. If I did that every time shit got tough, princess, I would have been dead a long time ago. Naruto heard a click as he was still trying to pick the lock, and then, snap, the hairpin broke inside the lock. Damn it. Naruto yanked himself back down and tried to come up with a strategy. See, I told you, you were just going to die here, like the fool you are. You all should have left me to die and returned home. There is no spring here, only a never-ending cold wear dreams. As Koyuki turned to face Naruto, she halted and said, "Would you shut the fuck up? I am trying to concentrate here, you dumb bitch." Naruto complained about the stupid princess, who wouldn't stop talking. He tried to draw on his chakra while closing his eyes. Although the chakra suppressors might be able to cut off chakra of a Jonin level, he was certain that they couldn't cut off all of his chakra because it was beyond that level. In fact, it was very nearly cage level, so he should have enough to use an escape jutsu. With his eyes closed, Naruto tried to concentrate on the movement of his chakra and sense its passage through his coils. Drip. Naruto heard a dripping sound, and his eyes opened fully, allowing him to look around. That meant he was back in his mindscape. When Naruto understood what that meant, a smile appeared on his lips. Perfect, he thought, and he dashed down the hallways in the direction of the Kyuubi's cage and his best chance of getting away. Returning to Team Kurenai, Nadare Roga launched an attack, but Yakumo jumped out of the way and swiftly executed hand seals, saying, "Kurama Hajutsu. Narakumi no Jutsu." Seeing the move coming, Nadare leapt to the side, allowing one of the hapless Yuki shinobi to be struck. Before he collapsed, bleeding to death from his eye sockets, the man screamed in agony and fear and started to claw at his eyes. Yakumo swore as she jumped out of Nadare's path of Hyugan maneuvers. Fubuki swiftly grabbed Hinata's wrist and threw her into the air after she sent a Juken strike at him. Hyugan. Sabama Fubuki, was a series of hand seals that Fubuki performed. Hinata was hit by a hail of ice needles that resembled tiny swallows. Quickly using Kaden in midair, Hinata let herself drop in the direction of Fubuki. When Hinata's Kaden made a crater where she landed, she leapt out of the way. With lightning speed, Hinata leapt from the ice crater and launched a viciously accurate barrage at Fubuki. As Mizore fired his retractable cable arm, Kurenai and Kakashi split up and attempted to flank him. As he blocked Kurenai's attack with his other fist, he saw them approaching and swung his cable arm at Kakashi. The film crew, meanwhile, was barely avoiding the approaching kunai from the 50 or 60 dodo. Loyal Yuki.Nin. As he deflected a blow from another Yuki.Nin, Sandayu drew a katana and cut the Yuki.Nin's head in half diagonally. As he threw Yakumo to the ground, Nadare laughed and said, "You should just give up, little girl. We outnumber and outclass you." As Yakumo attempted to remove Nadare's legs from beneath him, she spat up some blood. As he started to perform hand seals, Yakumo sneered, "We'll see about that," and threw a kunai with an explosive note at him. He leapt into the air and landed on a tree branch. As he said, "Hyugan. Roga Nadare no Jutsu." The ice that was falling around him changed into a pack of wolves. Charge at Yakumo. "I hope this works," Yakumo said. Reaching into her pouch and removing a string of explosive notes, she tied a kunai to each end and threw both kunai simultaneously at two different trees, holding onto one string as the wolves charged at her. When she let go of the string, setting off the explosive tags, the wolves jumped up and attempted to attack her. Yakumo was hurled into the forest as the wolves swiftly vanished. After being slashed across the face by some tree debris, Nadare yelled, "Damn bitch," and ran in the direction he had seen Yakumo go. He then started to charge up his chakra by performing hand seals and saying, "Time to die, Konoha scum." Hinata sent one of her own blows after dodging one of Fubuki's. Then she kicked Fubuki, amplifying it with Juken. Although Fubuki managed to catch the kick, she let out a painful scream as her hand felt like it was being pierced by 100 hot, white needles. "That's it, Hyuga bitch. I am done playing with you." Hinata sprinted through hand seals and inhaled deeply as she swept Fubuki off her feet and was ready to strike her sternum. However, Fubuki flipped back up and kicked Hinata in the jaw. When Mizore attempted to sidestep Kakashi and Kurenai's blows, the two Jonin surrounded him and knocked him back down. Leaping over him, Kurenai exclaimed, "Megan." Jubaku Satsu. When Mizor felt tree roots encircling his body, his eyes widened. He struggled to escape, but before he could do so, he heard 1,000 birds chirping. Rakery. Kakashi rushed at Mizor, thrusting his lightning chakra covered arm at the Yuki nin's chest. Naruto ran into Kyuubi's chamber after kicking open the door. "Hey furball, wake the fuck up," he said as the water splashed as he entered. Well, if it isn't my beloved container, what is it you want, vermin?" A pair of red, slitted eyes opened with a deep growl. Approaching the bars directly, Naruto said, "I need chakra, now. I can't reach my reserves, so I need to call on yours." "And just why, pray tell, would I ever consider giving you my chakra?" Kyuubi asked, raising one eyebrow. Naruto looked at Kyuubi. "Listen, you overgrown fleabag, I am currently trapped in a prison, waiting for my enemies to come and kill me. And last I checked, if I die, you die. You understand where this is going? Either you have the biggest set of balls in the elemental nations, or the smallest set of brains. To talk to me, the Kyuubi no Yoko in such a manner would be damn near suicide. Who would have thought a runt like you would have the spine to backtalk me? Very well, I will give you my chakra." Kyuubi narrowed his eyes at the blonde before he burst out of laughter. The pain of the chakra made Naruto want to scream, but he restrained himself. The mindscape started to fade as Naruto's eyes turned crimson red and finally exploded open. Beyond mindscape, as the crimson chakra surrounding Naruto licked at everything around him, Koyuki shuddered in terror at the sensation of the chakra emanating from him. It was as though a veil of hate and evil was enveloping her. Naruto's eyes, which were slitted in blood, crimson, opened abruptly. His teeth had become fangs, and the nails on his hands and feet had become claws. He glanced up at the locks that bound him and started tugging on the chains with unquestionable force. As Naruto's strength tore them apart, the chains started to bend and crack. Crack, snap. Naruto's right arm's chains snapped. After flexing his hand, he cut the other chain with his claws. He could move his arm voluntarily now, but the link was still around it. His arms were scorched by the chakra suppressors, which then dropped to the ground. With a toothy smile, Naruto turned to face Koyuki and said, "So, what was that about the situation being hopeless?" Returning to Team Kurenai after Nader completed the hand seals, Hyaden, Harumoka, appeared, and the wolves that had evaporated started to coalesce into a tiger composed entirely of ice. "Time to die, little girl," he said, snapping his fingers, and the tiger bounded forward. As she exclaimed, "Hyaden, Hyoro no Jutsu," pillars of ice erupted around Fubuki and headed directly for Hinata. Kakashi approached him with his rakery, and Mizor closed his eyes. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. The tiger crashed into the ground where Yakumo was and pulled her away from it. Hinata was taken off the battlefield. Mizor was instantly killed when the rakery impaled him through his chest. Before it eventually stopped, Naruto Uzumaki, encased in a layer of crimson chakra, was visible to Nader and Fubuki as an orange blur. "You two have some nerve trying to kill my teammates. Let's see how you fare against me," Naruto snarled at the two surviving Yuki nins, dropping Koyuki, Hinata, and Yakumo to the ground. He then buried his fist in Nader's stomach and charged at them with blinding speed. Then he twisted and struck Fubuki in the face with his fist. After coughing up some blood, Nader slashed at the blonde with a short katana. He kicked at Nader, but Naruto swung out a kunai and deflected the blow. With a dagger protruding from a port on her arm, Fubuki approached Naruto from behind and pushed her arm forward, threatening to thrust it into his back. After spinning out of the way, Naruto kicked both Fubuki and Nader in the face after their blades clashed. They skidded back a few meters after tumbling across the snow and landing back on their feet. As Naruto was about to launch another attack, he said, Well, it seems I put too much faith in your little gang, Nader." When everyone looked up, they saw Dodo standing on a pillar of ice. "I guess I have to take matters into my own hands," he said, pointing his arm at Nader and Fubuki. "Your services are no longer needed, Hyaden. Kokuryu Bofusetsu." A black ether, like dragon, erupted from Dodo's arm and headed straight for Nader and Fubuki. They raised their arms in an attempt to scream, but as soon as the dragon struck its target, they were covered in black ice. The two of them were left frozen in the ice after the ice broke, shattering into multiple pieces. "You bastard! Those were your subordinates. How can you be so cruel as to kill your own?" Naruto's rage surged, causing the red chakra to lash out even more. "They failed to serve me, they had no more use to me. Is that such a hard concept to understand?" Dodo laughed as he started to take off his royal kimono. With a roar, Naruto charged at Dodo, running up the ice pillar to try to drive his hand into Dodo's heart. However, as Dodo took off his kimono completely, his hand was caught by a black glove. This is the Mark II chakra armor. It is only a prototype, but it serves its purpose. Now, Dodo grinned as he threw Naruto into a tree. Time to finish this. He turned to Koyuki, and as he swooped down and grabbed Koyuki, 2 wings emerged from his back. He flew into the air, and Naruto thought, damn, I'll never catch him at this rate. The tree began to shake, so he thought, wait a minute. He ran up the tree and pulled down on it. It wasn't very flexible, but it would do its job. He sent his chakra into his feet to shoot himself farther as the tree threw him into the air after using it to prevent the tree from springing too soon. Dodo spun uncontrollably into a deep bowl-shaped glacier after Naruto collided with his wings. Dodo released Koyuki as they all collided with the icy ground, and Naruto slid into a mound of snow. The treasure of the Kazuhana family is mine. Dodo got up and smiled when he realized where he was. Looks like your plan failed. He ran to a small obelisk in the middle of the ice formation and grabbed Koyuki's necklace, which had fallen off during the crash. The necklace fit the keyhole perfectly when he slammed it into it. Damn, I can't call on that Baka Fox's chakra, shit. Naruto got up and tried to think of a way to win, saying, I am all out of attacks, and any of the ones I have will be useless. He winced as he coughed up some blood, and the crimson chakra retreated back into the seal. When he realized that he had one effective attack, Naruto's eyes opened. No, I can't use his technique. This is where it ends. Yuki no Kuni will soon rule all the elemental nations, and the world will be mine, Dodo said, turning to face Naruto and Koyuki. Sighing, Naruto held out his hand and said, damn me to hell for this. He focused his chakra into his palm and started spinning it, forcing it into a sphere-like shape. Damn. This attack isn't enough. And I never finished learning the final step. Naruto glared at the man, who may not like most of Konoha, but it was his home, so he couldn't just let it fall. Come on, come on, come on, Naruto urged the sphere, which was encased in a shell as it stabilized. Naruto grinned and said, good. He held his arm back and said, all right, it's time to kill you, Dodo. He charged at the insane villain while holding his technique. Dodo sneered and spun around, saying, you fool, no one can stop me now, Hayatan. Soryu Bofusetsu. As Naruto kept running at Dodo, 2 ether like black dragons bounded out of his hand and charged in his direction. As the 2 dragons crashed into Naruto, he pushed his arm forward and yelled, Rasengan, before tearing through them. As he got closer to the final male Kazuhana, Naruto kept charging in Dodo's direction, turning the dragons into slush. Just as Naruto slammed the Rasengan into his sternum, Dodo swung his fist at him. Large amounts of sharp debris were thrown everywhere as the Rasengan crashed into the chakra armor, causing a chakra explosion. When the whole area was enveloped in a rainbow aura, Team Kurenai managed to run over the hill just in time to witness the explosion. Heating panels were frozen beneath a series of shattered pillars. The snow started to melt, revealing grass in the process. As he looked around, Dodo gasped for air. This was it. He staggered back, his eyes going dark. IK. Killed. M.MYB our brother for this? Dodo's eyes went completely dark, and he collapsed. Gazing at his hand, Naruto fell to his knees. It was scorched by the Rasengan's chakra. In a few hours, the Kyuubi would fix it. As Team Kurenai ran towards them, Koyuki stood and approached the blonde. Come on Naruto, she said, lifting his arm over her shoulder. Let's go. They started to walk up the hill. Returning to Konoha as Heishi left Hitomi's bedroom, he moaned in agony and said, man, last night was hectic. He rubbed his scarred wrists from the rope burns and said, damn, that fucking hurts. He then went to get some calming cream from Hitomi's cabinet and applied it to the area where the burns were. He finally went to get coffee after tending to his wounds, but he forgot about Hitomi's fixation with purchasing coffee from specific stores. With that in mind, he simply woke up by splashing himself in the face with a glass of water. With a perverted smile, he said, well, Minato was right about one thing, as he sat on the couch and gazed out the window. I did enjoy that. Wearing her housecoat, Hitomi grinned as she left her room. Ah, I had so much fun last night Heishi-kun. We should do this more often, she said, starting to walk up Hiashi's arm with her fingers while she sat on the couch. Maybe if we're lucky, I can get that child I always wanted. Heishi sighed, please don't say that, I'm already going nuts with the ones I have now. Hanabi is crazy when she gets too much sugar in her system, and unfortunately, that I all she wants to eat, sigh. I regret allowing her to eat sweets. She chuckled, but you know you can't resist that cute puppy dog expression on little Han-chan's face, can you? Heishi sat back and gazed out the window, laughing. True, I can't. The Hokage monument could be seen perfectly from it. Didn't Hikari come here often to look at the monument? Hitomi replied, yes, as a matter of fact she did. She always scowled at the Sandame's face for some reason. Did she now? Heishi asked, raising an eyebrow as he glanced up at the Sandame's face. There was only one side of his face visible, and his left eye stood out. Wait a minute. Hikari viewed sinners in certain categories. She viewed all those who had forsaken their duties for their own gain as sinners. So, Heishi sighed and leaned back. When his own eyes returned to the Sandame's face, he said, in the eye of the sinner, the Sandame's eye. He leapt to his feet and sprinted to the door, saying, sorry Hitamagato go by. Why didn't he grab his clothes? Hitomi asked, following Heishi as he dashed into the streets in the direction of the Hokage Tower. Tower of Hokage. With all this stacked against you, here is an execution as a definite outcome. Minato sighed as he read through Ibiki and Inoichi's reports. Kushina handed him a cup of coffee and sat down in the chair in front of his desk. What happened to this village in our absence? Asked Kushina, shaking her head. It went to hell, that's what, Minato sighed, turning his chair to face the window. Hey, wait, sir. Oh my god, put some in there. When Minato and Kushina heard shouting coming from the lobby, they turned around and saw that the door had been kicked off its hinges, leaving a tiny cloud to cover the individual. Their eyes widened in complete shock as they watched the cloud vanish to see who it was. Minato, Kushina, I figured out the riddle. Heishi stood in the doorway, wearing nothing but a morning gown. He was perspiring, so the gown was now slung to his chest. He waited to see how they would react, but all he got was an eyebrow raise and mouths hanging in disgust. Why are you looking at me like that? He asked. Heishi covered her eyes and Kushina gestured to the area beneath her waist. Somebody get me some pants. Hiashi's eyes widened as he looked down, confused, and he covered himself by grabbing a nearby curtain. After Minato smashed his head on the desk and moaned, I am now officially scarred for life, Kushina agreed with him and ordered someone to get some clothes because they needed to look presentable if they were going to be in a meeting. After 20 minutes wearing a pair of clothes that had been brought up, Heishi sat in the chair nervously. Okay Heishi, what is the answer to the riddle? Kushina and Minato continued to twitch in disgust. Heishi breathed a sigh of relief. I am guessing that Hitomi hid the next piece in the Sandame's left eye on the monument. She definitely would have viewed the Sandame as a sinner after discovering his lies. Kushina raised her eyebrows. Alright, that would make sense, but how are we going to get the next piece? The monument is unstable as is from the invasion damage. So digging in the monument would be a bad idea. Heishi replied, yes, it would, but knowing Hitomi, she would have likely set up a seal where she could hide the documents. The problem is that she could have hidden it anywhere in the Sandame's eye. Well then, we had better get to work then, right? Minato grinned. After grabbing Heishi by the back of his shirt and nodding, Kushina said, come on, Heishi. Baka, you're coming with us. But why'd I have to go? Mimed Heishi. Heishi moaned as he was pulled out of the office, heading for the next puzzle piece, while Minato glared at him, saying, because you scarred me for life, and I have no intention of being the only one looking for the seal, now come on. One of the numerous servants of the now Queen Koyuki brought him a glass of wine, which Naruto drank with a sigh. After defeating Dodo, Koyuki regained her throne after realizing how stupid it was for her to keep escaping her position. Naruto was hailed as a hero for defending the princess, and his team received similar treatment. When Naruto turned to face Hinata, he saw a number of servants lavishing her with exquisite beverages and freshly baked cinnamon buns. Yakumo was being presented with artwork and sweet rolls. Kurenai was being offered expensive jewelry and rare wines. Some of the male servants were staring at her with admiration for her beauty, and the women were pleading with her for tips. But Naruto was receiving prince-worthy treatment. All of the servant girls were approaching him and pleading for marriage. Some even wanted to have his child. Dishes that would make the daimyo green with jealousy were being offered to him. In essence, he was being treated as though he were Yuki no Kuni's crown prince. People of Yuki no Kuni, your queen has returned, but had it not been for the actions of these young individuals, I most certainly would have been killed. Koyuki stood up and said out loud to Team Kurenai. Kakashi was grinning as he watched Naruto receive lavish treatment from the servants across the room. The fact that Naruto was so well liked made him happy. Everyone was yelling and applauding the nation's heroes, but they were so engrossed in their joy that they failed to notice Naruto's thoughtful expression as he gazed out the windows. That evening each of them had been assigned a separate, royal style room of their own. Every one of them has a servant waiting for them outside the door in case they need anything. The person outside Naruto's door was humming to herself with joy, loving that she had been selected to take care of Naruto's needs. Her eyes started to droop as she slowly turned her head in the direction of the door. She closed them completely and started to topple over, but before she could get into her chair, she was ensnared in the arms of a shadowy figure. The figure ran down the hall, adjusting the pack on his back. The figure headed down a huge hallway, swerving and ducking through the great palace's halls, avoiding servants who were moving through them. At the last door, the figure abruptly stopped and softly pushed it open, revealing a large balcony and, directly below, a soft patch of ground on which he could land. The figure was on the verge of pulling himself over after running to the edge. He turned around and saw Koyuki standing there in her kimono. And just where do you think you're going? The figure froze. Naruto, the figure stiffened as he turned towards Koyuki, and then sighed as he moved out of the shadow, revealing that he was indeed Naruto. Hello Koyuki. Sama, I was just taking a walk out, the queen interrupted his justification. Don't lie to me Naruto, you aren't good at it, even if you were good at it. The fact you were carrying a pack on your walk would not convince me. After cursing, Naruto turned to face the daimyo and asked, what do you want? Naruto, why are you trying to run away? She said as she moved forward. For the same reason you did. I want to get away from my problems. Is that so wrong? Naruto sighed as he sat on the edge and scratched his head. Naruto, I learned that running away from your problems is not the answer. If you keep running, your problems will eventually catch up to you, Koyuki said, giving him a dejected look as she approached and sat by his side. Maybe for you, but for me, running away might be the best option, Naruto said with a sigh as he turned to face Koyuki. With a pained expression, Koyuki said to Naruto, Naruto, nothing is ever solved by running. You don't know shit about what I went through, so you have no room to lecture. Naruto snorted and looked at Koyuki, who sat by his side and put her arm around his shoulders. Maybe not, but let me ask you this, is running away worth the pain you will cause the ones you love, who love you? Naruto stiffened up as Koyuki went on. Will breaking their hearts really be worthy running away? Looking down, Naruto considered all of his loved ones, including Kurenai, Tuchi, Ayame, Iruka, Hinata, Yakumo, Loli, and the local thugs. To get rid of Konoha, would he be prepared to harm them? Just think about it. Koyuki got up and kissed his head before turning to go back to her room, leaving the young Jinchuriki to ponder. At Konoha Heishi, Kushina and Minato were making their way up the path that led to the Sandame's head in the direction of Hokage Mountain. In terms of traps and other similar things, they had so far encountered no opposition. It was nearly too simple. They entered a large, empty room when they arrived at the Sandame's head. They noticed the huge crack that ran through the Sandame's head as they scanned their surroundings. The monument was held in place by a network of wires inside the crack, but some of the wires didn't seem necessary. Heishi approached the crevice and examined the cables. The majority of them approached the Sandame's eye. What the, oh boy. He raised an eyebrow as he activated his Byakugan, and his eyes widened completely when he saw what was inside the wall. A network of cables and wires, each encased in numerous seals, ran inside the wall. It encircled a ring inside the rock all the way up to the eye. So that's where she hid it, he said, noticing that the ring was hollow and that there was a piece of paper inside. As he turned to face Naruto and Kushina, he said, the next piece of paper is inside a ring surrounding the Sandame's eye. Then what are we waiting for? Kushina said with a smile as she dashed to the wall. Heishi yelled, Kushin ahhhhh, as he leapt in front of Kushina. Kushina collided with him and threw him against the wall. When he collided with it, he was propelled to the opposite side of the room by an unseen force. When he fell off the wall and two teeth emerged from his mouth, he let out a painful groan. Sorry, Heishi, Kushina said, scratching the back of her head. I fucking hate you. Heishi glared at Kushina. Minato took hold of Hiashi's shirt and lifted him up, saying, oh get over it, Heishi, I have done worse to you. Heishi snapped his head away and scowled at Minato while complaining about stupid blondes. So, why the hell did that happen? Minato asked, letting out a sigh and glancing at the wall. Heishi breathed deeply and touched his temple. The cables feed off of chakra in the air and stone around them, thus creating an invisible gravity field. My wife made them before she died, saying she wanted to use them for something. I guess this would explain why every time I activated my Byakugan I would see a small blip of chakra on the mountain. I always assumed it was a bird or something. How can there be chakra in the air and stone? Kushina asked, gazing at Heishi. Heishi glanced at Kushina. All things have chakra, some just more usable than others. For example, an animal is capable of utilizing its chakra, as can trees and plants. But their usage is limited, so not many people know this. Humans are the only ones, besides demons, that can fully utilize chakra to its greatest extent. However, one very skilled in chakra control can easily take the chakra particles around them and convert it to their own chakra. Sages and certain weapons are capable of this feat. Is there any way to shut down the field so that we can get to the ring? Minato asked, turning to face Heishi. The Hyuga's eyes brightened after he sighed and scratched his head. He turned on his Byakugan and scanned the room. He started tracing his hands over the walls while Kushina and Minato looked on. If I know Hana, which I know I do, then she would have left something to explain things. And if the point of where the paper is hidden, and where the wires are coming from are correct, then the message should be right. He looked up and said, "Here." Minato and Kushina approached Hiashi's location and took a look. They had never seen any language, but there were a number of complex writings on the wall. Heishi exclaimed, "Oh boy. Not another one," as he glanced at the writings and began to perspire. Turning to face Heishi, Minato asked, what are we looking at?" Heishi exhaled and got up. My wife had a tendency to write random gibberish around her words. It was her way of coding things. But the way she did it was so thorough that not even Konoha's best translators could figure the stuff out. He breathed a sigh of relief and struck the stone. She did the same thing for her vows on our wedding day. Also, it takes her a little while to remember what each gibberish word means. With a sigh, Heishi leaned against the wall. So, any chance we might be able to figure out the message? Kushina and Minato sat down and turned to face Heishi. I know, Heishi said, narrowing his eyes in a contemplative pose. I have to go get her diary. He hurried up and made his way to the exit. Since it wasn't often that a grown man would run outside and yell for his wife's diary, Minato and Kushina gazed at Hiashi's retreating figure with mild bewilderment. Want to go get some ramen? Kushina asked Minato, who sighed and got to his feet. He got up and made his way to the exit, thinking about how he was going to persuade Naruto that they were his parents, saying, "Naruto, my son. Sure, why not? Maybe it will calm me down enough to think." At Konoha Medical Center, standing at her desk, Tsunade examined her godson's numerous medical records. She was crying so much that her face was stained with tears, and she was holding a big keg of sake. Shizune drank another cup of sake while seated at a table. After observing Shizune consuming a cup, Tsunade scowled and said, "Shizune, that isn't good for you." Hearing Tsunade lecture Shizune was strange because normally it was the other way around. Well, Hiccup, what do you expect me to do? After seeing, Hiccup, Naruto's files. Burp. The dark-haired medic. Nin hiccuped and turned to face her mentor. She moaned as the effects of the alcohol began to take hold of her and blurted out, "Tsunade. Sama, why do we have to keep looking at those files? I don't want to do this anymore." Gazing at her apprentice and adopted niece, Tsunade bit her bottom lip. Shizune may have had a much greater tolerance for blood than Tsunade, but she had a deep affection for children. Shizune felt that witnessing even one child suffer was an unending torment. Tsunade approached Shizune and took her hand. "Shizune, if you really want to, you can head home for the night. I can take things from here. But make sure that you have somebody with you when you go home. Kami knows what could happen to you whilst you are drunk." "Thank you, Tsunade." "Sama." Shizune grinned and stood up, ready to go to the door. Crash. As Sakura waltzed in and the door was abruptly slammed open. "Take me as your apprentice," she said, slamming her fists into Tsunade's desk. Tsunade and Shizune gazed at Sakura. "What did you just say?" Tsunade growled at her, her eyes narrowing. The arrogant Sakura said, "You heard me. I want you to take me as your apprentice. If I train under you, Sasuke will view me as a worthy wife and love me." "You want Tsunade Sama to give away her prized techniques so you can impress a boy?" Shizune said, squinting her eyes in disgust. "Is this what Kunoichi have been reduced to since we left?" She turned to face Tsunade. In a haughty manner, Sakura spat and pointed at Shizune, saying, "Learn your place, bitch. I am better than you, and Tsunade should be honored to take me, the future wife of the last Uchiha, as her apprentice." Sakura trembled and soiled herself as Tsunade got to her feet and let out a lot of murderous intent. The shout, "Get out, now!" was so loud and forceful that it knocked Sakura off her feet. Tsunade sneered at the Haruno and gestured to the door. She gave the two Kunoichi one last glare before darting to the door and running out. Tsunade slammed her fist into the desk as soon as the door closed, saying, "That bitch, how dare she just waltz in here and demand to become my apprentice? To think, Kakashi allowed a Kunoichi hopeful under his care to turn out like her. The worthless little, Shizune snarled and shook her head. Angry, I punched the wall, leaving a small crater and sending a lot of spiderweb cracks through it. Pressing a button on her PA, Tsunade sighed and sat down, saying, I better get to work. Aide, could you possibly have Tenzo escort Shizune home for me? Of course Tsunade. Sama. A voice said over the comm. A click followed, and a few seconds later, a man with spiky brown hair, a traditional Jonin uniform, and a headpiece that looked a lot like Tsunade's granduncle entered the room. Shizune-san, I am here to escort you home, the man said with a smile. Okay. Come on then. Shizune said with a smile as she approached the door and went out. 1 week later Naruto gazed out from the front of the ship. After considering Koyuki's statement to him for more than a week, he finally made the decision to stay, if only to keep the people he loved safe. His new team consists of Tucci, Ayame, Loli, and the local scumbags. Even though he doesn't like the village, he could put up with them for a short time if there were still those few valuable people there. Time to go home, he said, grinning as he peered over the boat's edge and saw the approaching land. Returning to Konoha, Suna entourage as long as Tamari was in the village, the Suna group that accompanied her had decided to remain. She had been attempting to get closer to Naruto ever since she rented a condo. However, it was nearly ineffective because Naruto continued to think that the Yondaime was attempting to harm him and was doing so by using Tamari. He was paranoid, and she couldn't really blame him, but how long could someone be offered love and still think it was a trap? Her brother wasn't even that suspicious. Tamari sat on the roof and looked up at the sky while thinking about the blonde she had fallen in love with and pleaded with the council to let her marry him. It's getting cold outside, so you should go inside, she said, snapping her head to see her brother Gaara ascend the roof. With a sigh, Gaara approached his sister and sat by her side as Tamari grinned and shook her head, saying, No, I think I will stay out here. Tamari winced and cast her gaze downward. So, when do you think he will accept? She asked. She leaned back and gazed up at the sky, saying, Honestly, I don't know Otuto. Every time he rejects me, I feel my heart break a little more. He always has that cold look in his eyes when I tell him how I feel. She wiped away a few tears that threatened to spill. I just don't know what to do anymore. Tamari, slam. Gaara put his arm around his sister's shoulders. The two siblings turned to face their other sibling, Kankuro, who was shouting and waving his arms. Damn it Gaara, how long is it going to take to get Nisan inside? I am hungry. Kankuro, I can't just. Gaara glared at his brother before stopping abruptly because he sensed his sister's murderous intent. Oh Kankuro, what have I told you about using my make? Up to put on your war paint? Tamari asked, twitching as she smiled heartily at Kankuro. Kankuro froze at once, thinking he saw the Shinigami hovering over his sister's shoulders. He said. The oldest of the Sand siblings' cries, Kankuro, reverberated throughout Konoha and a portion of Iwa that night. Alongside Heishi, Kushina, and Minato as Heishi entered the Hokage tower with a box containing his wife's diaries, Kushina and Minato were ogling him. Reluctantly, Minato chose to be the first to speak. Heishi, what are you doing? Heishi sighed and put the box away. My wife had a tendency to write her special codes in the backs of her diaries. Unfortunately, she changed her codes every few weeks, so it was incredibly difficult to keep up with them, even when we tried to learn them. Eventually we decided to just give up and just have her explain her writing. Unfortunately for us, I don't know which one has the new set of codes, so we have to look through all these diaries to find them. Heishi grabbed a diary and was about to begin reading it. Looking up, he saw Kushina holding up a piece of paper that contained all the letters for each of his wife's codes, including the one that was inscribed in the rocks. Found it. He read through them and grabbed the paper. Well then, what are we waiting for? Let's go translate your wife's gibberish, Minato said with a smile as he got up and ran out the door, pulling Heishi and Kushina in tow. After 10 minutes, while reading the numbers, Hiyashi, who had been whipped, was yelling at Kushina and Minato, saying, I can't believe you threw me up the monument. There are stairs for a reason, Minato. Oh please, you survived, didn't you? Minato rolled his eyes as Hiyashi turned around and showed that he had twigs in his hair. Kushina slapped him across the head and said, yeah, but you threw me headfirst into a fucking bush, you jackass. Hiyashi turned to face Kushina and said, less talky, more translatee. Kushina gave him a pat on the back and said, translatee isn't even a word. Heishi narrowed his eyes at Kushina and went on with the translation, saying, and milky white isn't in the eye color spectrum, now move. The three of them gathered around Heishi and peered over his shoulder as he finished, letting out a sigh of relief. Alright, now to see what my wife wrote. You have discovered the scriptures, dear reader. Here's how to obtain the scroll. Flicking the switch in the Sandame's eye requires someone to scale the wall. Next, apply a few explosive notes around the eye with the least amount of force possible. After all three of them had stared at the paper, Kushina and Minato turned to face Heishi. "Okami no," said Hyuga, trembling as the two seized him by the shoulders. After 3 minutes, Kushina grinned and gave Hiashi Hyuga a pat on his charred head as he lay on the ground, sizzling and gazing up at the ceiling. Switch is flicked, ouch. Minato had already placed some explosive notes around the eyehole and said, "Thanks Ishii, now we just need to get the scroll out of there." He yelled, "Fire in the hole." As soon as the final one was in position. Boom! The wall threw rocks everywhere, some of which struck the still, sizzling Heishi. After the smoke cleared, Minato and Kushina swiftly seized the piece of paper and opened its holding port, which contained the official marriage certificate proving Naruto was their legitimate child, though they still required the birth certificate and the list of witnesses to Naruto's birth. And there was another piece of paper, written by Hikari. Heishi was sitting up from his injuries when Kushina and Minato approached him. He grabbed the paper and looked at it, saying, "Okay, now what is this riddle? Even though I don't need to speak in riddles anymore if you've made it this far, I'll still do it just to be safe." The final piece is located at the boundary between two lives and the final battle between titans. Heishi looked up at Minato and Kushina and smiled, saying, "I know where it is." Kushina and Minato leaned down, expecting Heishi to continue, but he fainted. Heishi, Minato, and Kushina all stared at the document. "Oh, hurry up." Kurenai Yuhi, Kakashi Hitaki, Yakumo Kurama, Hinata Hyuga, and Naruto Uzumaki were making their way to the gates of Konoha. The only two people who dreaded going to Konoha were Kakashi and Naruto, who hurried to get there as soon as they arrived at port after completing their mission. Because he was aware of the consequences of his actions, Kakashi added that the Hyuga clan would be furious with him for impersonating their heiress, Naruto, since he didn't want to put up with their nonsense. The two Chunin guards, Katetsu and Izumo, grinned at Naruto as they passed the gates, but they scowled when he shot them a chilly look before leaving. "Poor kid, I remember when that guy would go around pranking everyone left and right." The two guards sighed sadly as they watched the group leave. Now, Katetsu turned to face Naruto again. Izumo concluded by sneering, "Now Naruto is almost as emo as the Uchiha brat." The two Chunin had never been fond of the Uchiha because he was so conceited that it simply made them feel ill. Katetsu sat back in his chair and winced, saying, "Yeah, I sure hope he gets out of his funk soon." "Same here. Same here." Izumo sighed, placing his feet on the table and gazing up at the clouds. Tower of Hokage. The two documents they had discovered were placed in front of the desk, and Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki were gazing at it. The first was the document they discovered at Hitomi's house, which contained all of Naruto's birth information, including height, weight, blood type, eye and hair colors, fertility rating at birth, and any other information a doctor might record for a newborn. The official certificate of marriage, which proved that Minato and Kushina were legally wed and that any children they had were rightful heirs, was the second item discovered in the Sandame's eye. However, it was still insufficient. They had to locate the final two documents, otherwise, their efforts would have been in vain. "What do we do, Minato?" Kushina asked, glancing up at Minato. When she whimpered, Kushina looked down and said, "I want my baby back. Only Heishi knows Hana's riddles." As Minato gave her a cozy embrace, she broke down in tears and dropped to her knees. "I am aware of Kushi-chan, but we won't be able to locate the final two documents until Hiashi awakens. We just need to exercise patience for the time being." "Oh, okay." Kushina nodded her head and sniffed before getting to her feet. When Minato and Kushina heard a knock on the other side of the door, they turned to face it and said, "Knock. Knock. Enter." Minato and Kushina's eyes widened as the door opened, revealing Team Kurenai and Kakashi. Minato looked at Kakashi, narrowed his eyes at the guilty expression on Kakashi's face, and then turned to face the others, frowning when he saw his son, Naruto, tapping his foot impatiently, as though he didn't want to be here. "Oh, my child," he said with a sigh, turning to face Kurenai. "Report. Was your mission successful?" She pulled out a scroll and said, "It would appear that Yukie Fujikaze was actually the heir to the throne of Yuki no Kuni." Kurenai stepped forward and said, "Hi, Yandaime Sama, and we also managed to do more than just succeed the mission." She put the scroll on Minato's desk and said, "She has offered an alliance with Konoha. All the details are in the scroll." When Minato saw the seal of the Yuki no Kuni royal family on the scroll, indicating that it was authentic, he picked it up and nodded his head. "Very good, anything else to report? Kurenai turned to Kakashi and nodded, saying, as a matter of fact there is. But I believe my team should leave for now so that they may get some rest. Minato turned to face the three genin and nodded his head, saying, very well, you are all dismissed. None of the three went any faster than Naruto, but they all nodded and went. With a sigh, Minato shut the door and looked at Kurenai and Kakashi. Now, what else do you need to report? Kurenai breathed a sigh of relief and turned. It would appear that Kakashi here saw fit to disobey your orders regarding staying away from Naruto, abandoned his precious apprentice to try and take claim of Naruto's training, and as an added bonus, impersonated the Hyuga heiress. As Minato and Kushina turned to face Kakashi, the room's temperature seemed to drop by a few degrees. Kurenai, would you please leave? We need to talk to Kakashi about some things, and we need some alone time, Kushina said, glancing at Kurenai. Kurenai did not waste any time in leaving the office. And you can't even do that, right? Minato slammed his fist into the already shattered desk in front of Kakashi and said, Kakashi, I have given you your precious Uchiha. I have removed the so-called Dobi from your command, and I have even given you full reign to teach him whatever you wish so long as the skills you are teaching him do not directly belong to a clan or dojo. And all I ask in return is that you stay away from my son. When ki was suddenly thrown at him, Kakashi shivered and said, Minato. Sensei. Page please before collapsing to one knee as Minato continued to kill him. To you, that is Hokage. Sama, he got up and approached Kakashi, saying, you not only deserted your apprentice and obstructed the training and mission of another Jonin, but you also took the identity of the Hyuga heiress. I needed to. Naruto would never have taken any training from me, it was the only way I could have. Crunch, said Kakashi, shivering and turning to face Minato. As Kushina struck Kakashi in the face, shattering his nose, he was silenced. What is the only way you could have it? Further stunted his growth. Obliterate any remaining faith in his own generation. Do you want it that way? You have done more harm than good in the past 6 months, and you are still attempting to do more harm. You bastard! Kushina yelled as she seized Kakashi by the throat. Dropped to his knees, Kakashi bowed his head. Using the intercom, Minato pressed a button and said, Aid. Send my Anbu here to pick up Kakashi. Level 6 protocol. Kakashi's eyes widened as he looked up at Minato. Inmates who were deemed too dangerous to be left unharmed before their trial were placed under level 6 protocol, which involved having the majority of their abilities sealed or taken away outright. Put differently, Kakashi would be Sharingan without Kakashi. His anxieties grew when he heard Minato say, no mercy, as the Anbu arrived. As Kakashi was pulled away, his cries of fear reverberated. Alongside Naruto with a sigh, Naruto moved through the village, keeping his face hidden to avoid having to interact with the obnoxious people. Well, pretty much everyone. Hinata was glaring at every girl who kept looking at Naruto, and Yakumo was doing everything she could to prevent Hinata from going off and killing them. Behind him, Yakumo and Hinata sighed as Naruto did his best to avoid foolish members of the public. Finally, I am starving. Naruto sighed and approached the counter, saying, Ayame, 3 bowls of miso, 2 bowls of chicken, and a single bowl of beef. Oh, and a salt ramen to go. The 3 finally arrived in the area of town where people hardly ever went, directly in front of Ichiraku's ramen. As Tucci emerged from the rear, Ayame grinned and nodded, saying, Hi Naruto. It's good to have you back. She leaned over and picked up the items. Yeah, while we have been getting quite a bit of business, most of our customers are downright annoying. He glances at the time. Luckily, most of the annoying customers won't be here for another half hour or so. With a sigh and a head rub, Naruto said, Perfect. On second thought, get all of that to go. With a sorrowful sigh, Ayame started preparing all of the 2-go bowls. Tucci sighed as well. Naruto rarely stayed long enough for them to engage in their customary chatter these days. Instead, he simply arrived, picked up his meal, and went. The entire village, which had previously detested and mistreated Naruto, was now worshipping him as though he were Kami's gift to humanity after Tucci cursed the Yondaime for disclosing that he was his son. It was vile. Tucci looked up when the bell rang, indicating that someone had entered the store. 2 bowls of beef ramen please. And a bottle of sake, said a girl with 4 pigtails and blonde hair, dressed in Suna style kunoichi garb, with a big fan on her back. She appeared to be depressed. Aren't you a little young to be drinking? Tucci asked, raising an eyebrow at the girl, who was obviously no older than 15 or 16 at most. With a sigh, the girl lowered her head and said, Old enough to drink and have sex, old enough to kill. With a sigh, right. Tucci returned and began preparing the beef ramen as Ayame set the sake bottle in front of her. Tamari sighed as she took another gulp of sake after the girl popped the cork on top of the bottle and swiftly drank the alcoholic beverage. What am I going to do? Naruto still believes that I am just using him, and I have no way to prove it to him otherwise. No one saw anyone with a vile scowl on their face walk into the ramen stand. Crunch! Naruto's nose broke as the person grabbed him by his hair and threw him out of the ramen stand and into the street. Naruto had just grabbed the bag Ayame had put in front of him and was about to leave when he was grabbed by the shoulder and violently turned around, with a fist buried in his face. When the attacker struck Naruto, he threw his ramen everywhere, and Ayame screamed as she saw it fly everywhere. As whoever had attacked Naruto stalked toward the fallen blonde, Tamari, Hinata, and Yakumo hurried out after him. As he sat up to see who had attacked him, Naruto moaned and his eyes widened. Sasuke. In reality, Sasuke Uchiha was standing in front of him, his face twisted in a hateful manner, saying, "Fight me, Dobi." A large number of people gathered to observe the chaos in the street. Look, the Yondaime's son is being challenged by the last Uchiha. The Uchiha is a fool for believing he can defeat the Namikaze clan's power. Nevertheless, it will be entertaining to see him get kicked in the ass. I wager on the son of the Yondaimes. After giving the crowd a disgusted sneer, Naruto got up and turned to face Sasuke, saying, "What the hell are you talking about, Sasuke?" With a growl, Sasuke charged at him, saying, "Fight me." He swung a kick at Sasuke, who promptly blocked it, and swung his fist at the blonde, who ducked out of the way. The local thugs and lowly wanted to run in there and beat the living daylights out of the Uchiha, but there were too many people in their way for them to reach him. Hinata, Yakumo, Tamari, and a few others were watching Naruto anxiously off to the side. Before giving Naruto a powerful kick to the chest that left him gasping for air, Sasuke swung his fist and succeeded in smashing it into Naruto's jaw. With a smile on his face, Sasuke seized Naruto by the blonde hair on top of his head and pulled him to his feet. "Is that all you can do?" and sent Naruto flying back a few feet after smashing his knee in his face. Naruto.kun. As they attempted to avoid the throngs of spectators who wished to witness the battle between the heirs of the two most powerful clans, Tamari and Hinata both yelled. With a groan of agony, Naruto rose to his feet and scowled at the Uchiha, saying, "What the fuck are you doing?" "Because I want to show the Yondaime that I would be a much better son than you," yelled Sasuke. "He will then grant me the authority I require to murder my treacherous brother." Everyone watched the blonde to see how he would react, but what they saw was neither what they had anticipated nor something they would ever forget. The air around him thickened with malice, not. A red aura started to trail over his body, the son of. Naruto's head snapped up, revealing crimson-red eyes with demonic black slits. The Yondaime. His fists clenched as his hair covered his eyes, and he shook quickly as he sneered towards Sasuke. "For the last time. He said, his nails gradually grew longer, and his teeth sharpened. A red chakra explosion frightened everyone in the vicinity and sent dust and debris flying in all directions. At the touch of the key and the sight of a nine-tailed fox in Naruto's shadow, Sasuke nearly soiled himself. Naruto abruptly disappeared, and Sasuke was flung through multiple wooden walls, his cheek slashed 5 times. Naruto's arm was extended where Sasuke had been, and blood trickled from the tips of his claws. He threw back his head and opened his mouth, saying, "RWOOAAWWRRR," and roared fearfully before rushing after Sasuke, intending to kill him. Tower of Hokage, feeling the Kyuubi no Yoko's dark, bloodthirsty chakra, Minato and Kushina froze and stared out the window. They saw a bright red aura in the middle of the village, and their eyes widened in shock. "Okami no." The two hurried out the window in the hopes of arriving in time, heading for the red aura. Naruto is back. After coughing up a big glob of blood and colliding with a wooden pillar, Sasuke was snagged by his hair and his face slammed into a pile of wood, causing splinters to fly into his face. After yanking the Uchiha up with a sneer, Naruto said, "Is that all you have?" As he crashed through another wooden wall, he kicked Sasuke in the stomach, causing him to cough up more blood. The Uchiha was now frantically trying to stand up in an attempt to flee, but Naruto grabbed him by the back of his throat and pulled him up, squeezing him tightly as the red Yuki of the Kyuubi started to burn the last Uchiha's skin. Naruto snarled hatefully as he followed the Uchiha. "Ah!" Sasuke let out a cry of agony as the Yuki's caustic touch caused his skin to simultaneously melt and burn. "Die! Sasuke!" sneered Naruto, raising his other hand, the claws appearing to get longer and sharper. He was about to tear open the Uchiha's throat when he swung his claws. Cease. A piece of paper was placed on Naruto's forehead, the red chakra of the Kyuubi retreated into the seal, and Naruto was yanked off of Sasuke while his wrists were grabbed from behind. Minato Namikaze removed the seal from Naruto's forehead as he passed out, and then he snapped his head in the direction of everyone who had witnessed Naruto unleash the power of the Kyuubi. Would someone mind telling me why none of you bothered to try and top this? He asked, as he was lifted up in Kushina Uzumaki's arms. Yondaime. Sama. We wanted to see your son put the Uchiha in his place where he belongs, said one of the shinobi in front. The rest of the crowd cheered enthusiastically and shouted in agreement. But Kushina didn't? So the chance of the Kyuubi escaping the seal is worth a battle of supremacy? Are none of you aware of what might have occurred? The audience fell silent as Kushina went on. My son could have become the Kyuubi himself if he had released enough of Kyuubi's Yuki. As they looked down in embarrassment, the crowd fell silent. Minato was about to follow Kushina as she turned toward the hospital with her son in tow, when he turned to face the Uchiha, who was attempting to stand up. He grabbed Sasuke by the front of his shirt and let out enough ki to make the Uchiha freeze in his grasp. If you ever, and I mean ever, attack my son again. He gave the Uchiha a painful squeeze before hurling him to the ground in a heap and saying, I will finish the job your brother started. He then hurried after his wife. The crowd gradually thinned out, leaving behind only Loli, the local scumbags, Hinata, Yakumo, Tamari Ayame, and Tucci. 3-day time skip. Hospital. As they sat in their son's room, Minato and Kushina sighed. Their son was lying unconscious, hooked up to multiple IV needles to give him nutrients while he slept. How did it come this far? How? Minato sighed, holding his head tightly. While his wife attempted to console him, he got up and leaned against the wall. She turns to her child and sighs, saying, Now Minato-kun, don't worry. I'm sure Naruto will be fine. Maybe if he stays here, he will be safe as we look for the last 2 documents. Minato nodded. If what the doctors told me is true, he won't be out for much longer, and even if we tie him up in chakra-enhanced cuffs he is going to get out of this hospital, if he has to drag the hospital room itself with him. They had half the documents they needed to prove Naruto was their son, but without the other half, it was all for nothing. Kushina looked down sorrowfully, sat down on the chair in the room, and pulled out the 2 documents they had discovered. Kushina held it up to the window while she examined the papers, and she gave a quick glance. She glanced at Minato and said, Minato. Look. The lines were faint, but they were present on the paper. He took the paper and looked at it. He recognized the seal, but he could not remember where he had seen it before. Minato walked over and looked at the papers. His eyes quirked. The lines were obviously those of a seal array, but they appeared to have been applied later, as he had no memory of having seals applied to the documents. When Minato saw what it was, he turned the 2 papers over and put them next to one another. His eyes widened. It was a unique set of numbers and data, not a seal, but why in the world was it on the papers? Row 7. Column C. Shelf 6. Book 45. Page 97. Kushina asked, examining them more closely. What the hell does that? Minato. She asked, raising an eyebrow as she glanced at Minato. Why that place? That book. And that page. Minato moaned, clutching his forehead. He then turned and slammed his head against the wall, saying, Damn you, Hana. Kushina gave Minato a worried look and said, Minato. What is it? With a sigh, Minato left the hospital and headed for his least favorite spot on the planet, saying, You'll find out when we get there. The public library in Konoha. In the interim. With Sasuke, stupid Hokage. How dare he deny me the power I deserve? He clenched his fist as he sat in the Uchiha compound, glaring hatefully at the Hokage tower. If only I had enough power. Then I would make this village realize the Uchiha clan's superiority. When Sasuke turned to face the 4 figures standing behind him, he asked, Is that so? I think we can help you with that.
That's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this great story. See you in the next one.